Chapter 491. In order to get the fallen sky ship as soon as possible, List kept an eye on the carpenters in the carpentry workshop to make the wheelbarrow. With thorny ironwood and rubber glue, the carpenters only needed to make the appropriate parts and put them together to form a wheelbarrow. However, the precision was a problem. The first wheelbarrow was made in 2 days, but it was very ugly and not flexible enough when pushed. This attracted Isaiah's amazement. "My lord, is this a wheelbarrow? It's amazing. It's more flexible than a handcart, and a person can push it around. With such a wheelbarrow, serfs don't need to spend much effort when transporting goods. It's too rough and not detailed enough. Carpenters, continue to work. I want to make a qualified wheelbarrow." List was not satisfied. There was no other way. The smoke mission had not been completed yet. This meant that the wheelbarrow was defective and not recognized. It could also be said that List did not recognize it in his heart. After all, the smoke mission had a lot to do with the reflection of his thoughts. Even in his view, the completion rate of the mission and the issuance of many missions were a portrayal of his heart. The smoke dragon's power of fate mixed with his own spiritual power to form the smoke mission. Whether it was like this or not was not important. The important thing was that the carpenters had to make a better wheelbarrow. With the experience of the first wheelbarrow, the second wheelbarrow only needed a few changes to improve the precision of the parts. So in less than a day, a brand new wheelbarrow was produced. When the carpenters pushed the wheelbarrow smoothly in the carpentry workshop, List summoned the smoke mission and showed a satisfied smile. Mission completed. Reward: the fallen sky ship. After the mission was completed, he hurriedly told the carpentry workshop to produce wheelbarrows and left. Returning to the town's office, he arranged for the patrol team to increase the patrol, trying to find the fallen sky ship. In addition, he didn't need to do anything else, because the new mission was the same as last year's festival mission. It's been another year of hard work. As a lord, I finally have the opportunity to relax and enjoy the upcoming festival, but I still have to think about the development of the territory next year, prepare for the Sky Knight's training, and plan for the breeding of the magic fire seed. Please wait for the end of the festival. Reward: unknown reward. Every time a new year or war ended, there would be unknown rewards, and they were all very valuable rewards. This made him want to spend the new year as soon as possible. Unfortunately, it was only December 26th, and there were still 4 days until the new year. The patrols of Flower Town and Black Horse Island did not find the fallen sky ship. It was actually discovered by a group of sailors involved in the development of the Newport. Newport Town, located in the northwest corner of Black Horse Island, has not yet been built, but its attached Newport Pier has begun to explore the waters. Even if the seawater was bone-chilling in winter, for sailors who were used to the harsh cold, it was just a winter swim. When they were exploring the depth of the sea, they discovered a huge sunken ship at the bottom of the sea. So they quickly sent the news to the castle and to List's ears. A huge sunken ship was discovered in the waters of Newport. List's expression was calm, but his heart was extremely excited. This sunken ship was undoubtedly the sky ship that had fallen. The descendants of the Sun's Child have not been forgotten. The people of the Sun's Child sent the sky ship to welcome them home, but it sank. List quickly dispatched the flowers and prepared to sail to the Newport waters of Black Horse Island. At the same time, he took out the floating bottle, used a little of old Phil's blood, opened the bottle cap, and poured out the note with the Sun language. The tower collapsed, the tree city burned. XX has died. The Sun's Child will rise with the flame. The children of the outside world, you are free. Comparing the Sun language on the note, List guessed in his heart. The Sun's Child clearly sent the sky ship. Why did he send out a floating bottle? Since there was a ship to pick up people, of course, there was no need to use a floating bottle to send a letter, unless they knew that the sky ship had sunk. But there were still many logical obstacles that could not be explained. List was not in a hurry to guess. Anyway, the sky ship was soaking in the waters of a new port and could be salvaged at any time. Then, he could find secrets from the ship's relics. A new world was about to unfold in front of him. The excitement in his heart could be imagined. Before leaving, he found the siren A Chi who was reading a book in the seascape villa. Achi, I found a shipwreck in the waters of the new port of Black Horse Island and am preparing to salvage it. In order to prevent any relics from being missed, I hope you can follow me and fish up all the missing items. Achi simply nodded. Okay. She would not refuse any of List's requests. It was already the morning of the 28th when they sailed overnight to the new port waters. When they arrived, they found that the Thorns had been dispatched to salvage the shipwreck. Sir, this shipwreck is too big. It is like a castle falling into the sea. It is difficult for the Thorns to drag it up from the bottom of the sea, and our sailors cannot dive to the bottom of the sea and cut the shipwreck into pieces. Gort reported, I think we need to gather more ships and salvage it together. Then dispatch the flower, the pearl, and the mangrove to salvage the shipwreck together. List waved his hand and made a decision. Then he added, by the way, Advisor Gort, I recently received a batch of gold coins, about 5,000, which have been allocated for the construction of a new town. There's still 1,000 gold coins left. I hope you can take these 1,000 gold coins and exchange them for 3 more cargo ships to replenish the fleet of Black Horse Island. His gold coins came from the Levis couple. They were selling black pearls very well and had begun to make money, so they could pay off part of the payment before the new year. He even planned to order another batch of black pearls, but unfortunately, List did not have extra black pearls. With the gold coins, he planned to buy ships. The cargo traffic between Black Horse Island and Flower Town would gradually become busy, and it would be difficult to satisfy the demand without a large number of ships. Moreover, he also hoped that he could nurture a batch of qualified crew members and build a sufficient number of ships to participate in the future expansion war. It was uncomfortable to always borrow other people's ships. At noon, several ships stopped cargo and came to the new port waters. After letting the sailors dive and tie the ropes, the 4 ships sailed together, towing the shipwreck that was half buried on the seabed. However, to List's dismay, the 4 ships still failed to drag the shipwreck out of the mud. At night, the shipwreck was still sinking on the seabed, and there was no sign of it coming up. Captain Costo shook his head and sighed. Sir, the shipwreck sank deep, and the ship's towing power is not enough. We need more ships to participate in the salvage of the shipwreck. List thought about it. List made a decision. Forget it. We will salvage the shipwreck after the new year. Let it stay in the sea for a while longer. Anyway, I don't know how many years it will sink, so there's no hurry. Pay attention to confidentiality and don't disclose the news of the shipwreck here. Understood, sir. However, except for List, no one knew that a large white shell was searching for the fallen ship on the seabed. Chapter 492. Sometimes List himself feels that a cheese roll is too big. What he can give Achi and what he can get from Achi are simply incomparable. It can be said to be a small capital with great profits. Now, the fallen sky ship has been entrusted to Achi to salvage, and the good things can be sent directly to the Sea View Villa in Flower Town. Then he can return to Flower Town with peace of mind and prepare to attend the New Year's Eve dinner at Tulip Castle. Although it has been in theft because the family is still maintained, all the Tulip family's bloodline must return to Tulip Castle to attend the dinner at New Year's Eve. Unless there is a special arrangement, such as last year, they went to Lontaro Castle to spend the New Year's Eve. This year, there will be one more person at Tulip Castle's New Year's Eve dinner. No, there will be 2 more people. Rolia Golden Wheatsway has been successfully pregnant, and List will have a younger generation. He is looking forward to the birth of this little baby. Perhaps witnessing the birth of a new life will make him more integrated into the Tulip family. On the 29th, in Port Town, he will host the year-end summary. On the 30th, in Flower Town, he will host another year-end summary. On the morning of January 1st, 153 of the Sapphire calendar, on the morning of New Year's Eve, List rode Loki, who is still evolving, and set off with his Blizzard Beast team to Tulip Castle. He also brought the corn sprite Mickey along, because both the Count and Madame Penelope wanted to see this sprite. The birth of every sprite is a great honor for the Tulip family. Loki's speed is so fast that the retainers can't catch up with him on horseback, so he directly let the retainers lead the Blizzard Beast and walk slowly on the ground. He himself rode Loki and glided at low altitude. Counting the rest time, he arrived at Tulip Castle in just an hour. Silva, the deputy butler, who was directing the servants to clear the snow on the road, was surprised to see List riding a big bird. "Good morning, Master List." Silva greets you. "I didn't expect you to come to Tulip Castle so early. You must have gotten up early." "No, I'm just faster on a mount." Silva didn't understand. List didn't say that he didn't like Silva, the deputy butler. In his memory, the old butler, Levis, treated the 4 children very well, but Silva favored Levis more. "Ask someone to help me feed Loki. Remember, Loki likes to eat wheat grains, preferably barley grains. Don't eat too much at one time. 3 pounds will do. But every 2 hours, he needs to be fed again. His body is growing now. Also, give it some fruits, juicy fruits." "Yes, young Master List." Silva replied respectfully. "I'll go inform Master, Madam, young Master, and young Miss of your arrival." "Silva, where's Grandpa Lewis? He used to come out and greet me." "Steward Lewis is currently recuperating from his illness. The Lord has allowed him to retire. Currently, I am the steward of Tulip Castle. Young Master List, if you have any requests, just let me know." Louise falls ill. Silva returns to work. List frowned and decided to visit Lewis. He liked that Lewis used the word home every time he came to Tulip Castle. It made him feel like he wasn't a guest, but the owner of Tulip Castle. It made him feel more at home. Now that Silva didn't use the word home, it meant that in his eyes, List was just a guest. Of course, from the perspective of enfeoffment, List was indeed a guest of Tulip Castle and no longer lived in Tulip Castle. It was just that he felt a little uncomfortable. The old butler, Lewis, had moved out of Tulip Castle after his retirement and lived in a wooden manor house next to the castle. He could also help take care of the manor. Seeing List walking in the snow, Lewis, who was wrapped in a thick cotton coat, suddenly lit up his pale face. "I know that the most glorious Son of the Lord will definitely come to the New Year's banquet today. It's a pity that I'm sick and can't greet you in person. I've come to see you. I hope you'll get better soon." List smiled warmly. Lewis was living a good life. There was charcoal burning in a manor fireplace, and the house was very warm. There were also 2 servants cleaning the place. For an old butler who had contributed his whole life to the family, the Count obviously wouldn't let his old age end in a miserable state. They chatted for a while. It was heartwarming to hear Lewis talk about his predecessor's childhood. But soon, Levis came to find him. "List, I was wondering where you were. So you were at Grandpa Lewis's place. I was looking for you." "Young Master Levis, young Master List, you can go ahead. Grandpa Lewis, take care of yourself. If you need anything, just tell me." List stood up. Levis said directly, "Don't worry, List. I'll take care of Grandpa Lewis. Let's go have a drink and talk about making money. With the glory of the night, who cares for you? I've made a lot of money this year, Black tulip, fresh flower wine, black pearls, plus some other trades. As a channel dealer, Levis eats no less than List, and now his wallet is getting fatter and fatter. Therefore, he is getting closer to List, not only because he can make money, but also because of List's talent. The 17-year-old Sky Knight, his future strength will definitely surpass the Count. How can he not be close to such a younger brother? Kinship was the bond between people, but interests were the eternal and unchanging topic of communication. "Do you want to talk about business, brother? Just leave it to Mr. Frank and Advisor Gort. I'm not interested in these things. You are now a Sky Knight. There's really no need to worry about this small business." Levis was speechless and quickly felt that he and List were no longer on the same level. List often pulled him to talk about business, but now he was dismissive of business. Sure enough, different strengths bring different horizons. He also immediately changed the subject. "What about your corn sprite? Did you bring it? Grandma has been talking about it several times. It's also thanks to your knight's glory that Grandma is going to give us this year as a gift, or a potted plant. I received several potted plants from her, but I didn't see a sprite worm." Everyone complained about Madame Penelope's potted plants. Only List was happy. He had already received a black nightshade worm and a fig worm from Madame Penelope. The gifts were of great value. "By the way," Levis added, "Grandpa uncle, and cousin have all sent you gifts to congratulate you on your promotion to a Sky Knight. They are in the castle. Do you want to go and see them now? List immediately looked forward to it. A gift to congratulate me. Then let's go and see. Chapter 493. 3 boxes, 3 gifts. List, filled with anticipation, opened the first box. This box was a congratulatory gift from Eopal and Angela. The box looked very big, but after opening it, it was stuffed with wood shavings. In the middle of the wood shavings was an even smaller box. After opening the small box, the gift inside was immediately revealed before his eyes. It's a sapphire pendant. Levis, who was standing on the side, immediately recognized the gift. It should be a sapphire magic equipment stimulated by a magic array to increase strength. The sapphire produced by the sapphire dragon had the mysterious power of increasing strength, greatly increasing the strength of the user. At the same time, the gem also had a general effect of increasing the casting effect of magic. According to different magic arrays, different effects of the gem could be stimulated. Since it was a gift for List, it naturally would not stimulate the magic amplification, but rather the strength amplification. Sure enough, being the son-in-law of a Grand Duke is different. With a sapphire dragon at home, the gifts are sapphire magic equipment. List was very satisfied with the gift. The value of the sapphire equipment was very high, at least 1,000 or 2,000 gold coins. This was also the case when his grandfather, Marquis Merlin, gave him the red blood sword. After saying that, he hung the sapphire pendant around his neck, stimulated the sapphire pendant with his chi, and quickly formed a connection between auras. Thereupon, he felt that under the stimulation of the sapphire pendant, his body was stimulated by abundant strength out of thin air. It was as if he could kill a World of Warcraft with one punch. After hanging it up, he did not intend to take it off. He immediately opened the second box, which was a congratulatory gift from Mr. and Mrs. Messiro. After opening it, he took out a cloak with fine workmanship. It had a red face, a black background, and golden edges. It looked very gorgeous. This was not an ordinary cloak, but a piece of magical equipment. According to the letter inside, it was carefully woven from the fur of a low-level World of Warcraft woolly beast. This cloak alone used the fur of 10 woolly beasts, and the attacks of the Earth Knight could not tear it apart. Its value was not low, but it was not high either. It was worth about 400 or 500 gold coins. List was quite satisfied. After all, it was just a congratulatory gift between relatives. A gift of 400 to 500 gold coins was already very expensive. Finally, there was the gift from his grandfather, Marquis Merlin. Like the gift from Eopal and his wife, it was also a box within a box. When the small box was finally opened, there was only a feather inside. He did not have time to see what feather it was. Levis exclaimed, "Oh my God, List, Grandpa treats you so well." This was a phoenix feather. The feathers of the legendary Central Asian dragon, the phoenix. Phoenix feather? List was also surprised. He had heard of the phoenix before. It was said that it was born from flames and possessed the bloodline of dragons. It was a super dragon species in World of Warcraft. However, the phoenix was only a legendary creature. There was no concrete evidence to prove that it truly existed in this world. Some night novels depicted phoenixes, but most of them depicted the feathers of phoenixes. No one had been able to find the phoenix. Even the night novels, it had never appeared. However, its feathers appeared frequently in the night novels and were generally described as the essence of flames. For a fire-attributed knight, to obtain a phoenix feather, it could be said to be like adding wings to a tiger. It could substantially increase the cultivation speed of fire-attributed chi. For a knight of other attributes, the phoenix feather was of little value. For a fire-attributed knight, however, it was a treasure worth thousands upon thousands of gold coins. No one had described the price of the phoenix feather, but it was certainly calculated in dragon coins. Just this phoenix feather alone could be sold for several dragon coins, which was several tens of thousands of gold coins. Its value was much higher than that of the little elf soldier. It was almost comparable to a dragon bone weapon forged from dragon bones. Is it really a phoenix feather? List held the feather in his hand, feeling the surging fire-attributed magic power. He unconsciously swallowed his saliva. The gift from my grandfather is really too valuable. I shouldn't have accepted such a valuable gift, but I can't bear to give it back. Of course you have to keep it. This is a phoenix feather. You happen to be a fire-attributed knight. You can't miss it, and it's a gift from my grandfather. Why can't you accept it? Levis cried. He had already lost his composure. This gift was too valuable. That's right. It's a gift from my grandfather. I must accept it, Lis said solemnly. At the same time, his mind was exceptionally clear. His grandfather's gift was not only a congratulatory gift, but also a kind of entrustment. He hoped that he could help the Taro family. Marquis Merlin had expressed this when he spent the New Year's festival in Long Taro Castle. After all, the Taro family was too small. It didn't matter if there was such a gift. With the blood of the Taro family, he would definitely help the Taro family when he could. Now that Marquis Merlin had sent such a valuable gift, coupled with the fact that he had been good to him since he was young, Lis could not escape this responsibility. Phew! He looked at the phoenix feather in his hand, still feeling a little incredulous. The phoenix feather of the draconic phoenix, had truly appeared in front of him. Before this, whether the draconic dragon existed was still limited to legends. No one could prove it. Now it seemed that there was no need to prove anything. The phoenix feather's surging fire attribute magic was enough to prove that it was not much weaker than the dragon bone. But when List carefully looked at the phoenix feather, he suddenly found that this feather did not seem like a real feather. Instead, it was like some kind of fiery red gemstone in the shape of a feather. The texture was also very hard to the touch. It was as prickly as iron wire and difficult to change shape. Is this a feather or not? He could not help but ask, Levis, do you think the phoenix feather is really a phoenix feather? It doesn't seem to be a real feather. Let me see. Levis carefully took the phoenix feather and carefully observed it. I can't say for sure. It really doesn't look like a real feather. However, we have never seen a phoenix, and we don't know what a draconic dragon looks like. Perhaps this is what a phoenix feather should look like. In any case, as long as it works for you, it's a real phoenix feather. This was indeed the case. Whether it had fallen from a phoenix or was some kind of gemstone formed in nature, as long as the effect was still the same as the legend, then it was a real phoenix feather. The surging fire attribute magic was enough to prove that it was a real phoenix feather. He put it into his arms. It was like putting a stove in his arms, full of warmth. After a moment, in the living room on the second floor, the Tulip family all sat together, looking at the phoenix feather on the table. The Count used a magnifying glass and lowered his head to carefully observe the lines of the phoenix feather. The magnifying glass was a small invention that came with the telescope invented by Liszt. I can't judge whether it is really the remains of a creature. At least compared to the dragon bone, there are more signs of magic power. It is likely to be the product of magic power condensation, like the gemstones produced by dragons. The Count raised his head and said the results of his analysis. Chapter 494. Dragon, Wyvern. Super dragon species in World of Warcraft, inferior dragon. Other high-level, intermediate, and low-level dragons in World of Warcraft, dragon. Together with the dragon species, it formed the genealogy of dragons and dragon-type creatures. Wyverns were the pinnacle of power in this world. Standing at the top of the food chain, very few creatures could threaten their existence. Wyverns were legendary creatures. There were many descriptions of them, but no one had ever seen them in person. Draconic beasts were also rare, but they still existed. List Chocobo Loki was a low-level draconic beast. Loki's bloodline evolution had not yet been completed, and it might eventually become a mid-level dragon. Dragon-type beasts generally existed in groups, such as the blue blood horses raised by Sapphire Grand Duke, the black blood horses raised by Liszt, and the dragon milk cows raised by him. In short, the gem-like phoenix feather could not prove the existence of the phoenix. After showing it to his family, he immediately put the phoenix feather back into the gem space. This was a priceless treasure for him, and he could not be too careful. So much so that he did not intend to study the phoenix feather in Tulip Castle. After the New Year's festival, He would return to his territory and then slowly study it. This year's New Year's festival was quite lively. The family gave each other gifts, which were relatively ordinary food, clothes, and the like, with no valuables. Madame Penelope still gave him a potted plant that she had carefully taken care of. Unfortunately, Liszt walked around her balcony and did not find a potted plant that bred sprite worms. Those two sprite worms could be said to be something that could only be encountered and not sought. I read the Liszt's Earth Codex created by you. Many of the cultivation experiences in it were clear and eye-catching, and many of the methods inspired me. The Count was in the study, chatting face-to-face with Liszt. It was unknown when, but Liszt gradually stepped into the study more often. Of course, a lot of the time was spent awkwardly chatting, and tonight was no different. After awkwardly chatting about some trivial matters in life, the two simply exchanged their cultivation experiences. Liszt replied, "I did not expect to be able to inspire you. I've been thinking about how you managed to become a Sky Knight in such a short time. This goes against my understanding of cultivation. But through this letter, as well as your communication with Liszt and Lytton, I finally understood the reason." "Oh, Father, what kind of reason do you understand? You have a deep understanding of cultivation. This understanding is even deeper than a sword saint like me. Most of the time, we think that cultivation talent is reflected in one's bloodline, but that's not the case. A person's vision and knowledge can also determine their talent." Then, the Count began to summarize his findings. He said a lot blah 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 blah. In the final analysis, Liszt was smart and rarely took detours in his practice. It was difficult for the Count to find an excuse for him. Of course, Liszt would not be ungrateful, so he nodded and said, "Yes, Father. My bloodline is the same as yours and my brother's. My talent is not much better. However, I have been thinking more about cultivation, and this thinking has helped me open the door to a new world of cultivation. So I think that we, father and son, need to communicate more in the future. I have a lot of experience in Sky Knight cultivation, and you have a keen understanding of cultivation. If we communicate more, it will be a great improvement for both of us. Maybe in a few years, I will be able to become a perfect Sky Knight. I also hope to help you achieve it as soon as possible. So, have you summed up any clues in your recent practice as a Sky Knight?" the Count asked. Liszt replied, "At present, I'm still adjusting my body's new degree of adaptation to the potion, and at the same time, I'm also exploring the tricks of high-level Qi cultivation. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. I will. Look at the Sword Saint's Handbook that your grandfather gave you. I often borrow this handbook from Levis to read. There's indeed a lot of experience that can be used as a reference. In fact, I have already memorized the Sword Saint's Handbook." The Count was inexplicably embarrassed. "Well," Liszt continued to show off, "I like to read, and I have a good memory. In fact, I have also memorized the Red Sun, Rising Fire secret book. I think that instead of storing commonly used knowledge in books, it is better to store it directly in your mind and extract it at any time you need it. Well, I don't like magicians. They are always destroying, but I admire their enthusiasm for studying the truth. I also think that they use magic books to spread knowledge, which is a very good way. If you want to understand something, the best way is to record and study it. Well, I do the same. I study the interaction between potions and Qi, the interaction between potions and the body, the study of reasonable cultivation methods, and even new Qi secret books. I think that if the predecessors can create Qi secret books, it is not impossible for me to create them." "You are still planning to create Qi secret books?" the Count exclaimed. "Father, this is not difficult to understand." Liszt calmly took a sip of milk. "If potions can sum up a way suitable for an individual's physique, why can't Qi secret books sum up a move suitable for an individual's physique? Everyone's fighting style is different, and the body is also different. The Qi secret books of the predecessors may not be completely suitable for me." The Count sat in his seat, holding a glass of red wine and constantly sipping it. Liszt was still talking endlessly. He was now a Sky Knight, and it was rare for him to communicate with the Count, who was also a Sky Knight. Naturally, he wanted to enjoy himself. In the Earth Knight stage, I was eager to break through to Sky Knight, so I didn't have the time to create Chi secret books. Now that I have become a Sky Knight, I should think carefully and create a Chi secret book that suits me. This was the truth. In the past, he was weak and lacked a sense of security, so he desperately took potions to cultivate. Now that he had become a Sky Knight, he even had a shadow of the dragon he would ride in the future. Naturally, he no longer had to worry and could be more patient in his cultivation. He was ready to continue his long speech. The Count suddenly interrupted. It's already late. List, it's time to go back and rest. Don't forget that today is the New Year's Day. Relax properly and don't always think about cultivation. I agree with your idea and hope that you can have a greater breakthrough. I am proud of you, my son. Despite being somewhat disappointed, List still got up and said goodbye. The Count was left sitting alone in his study, unhappy. He poured a glass of red wine and fiercely poured it into his stomach, returning to his room to rest. List couldn't sleep. First, he was waiting for the unknown reward of the smoke mission to be issued after 12 o'clock. Second, the phoenix feather had always been tempting him, making him impatient to take it out and play with it. The fiery red feather was about the distance between the middle finger and the wrist. The whole feather was slightly curled and had a transparent luster. This was a proper feather. The large feathers covering the body of a bird, as well as the flight feathers and tail feathers, were all classified as proper feathers. The structure of a proper feather included a feather handle, a feather shaft, a feather branch, and a feather. This phoenix feather had these structures. However, its feather branch was not pliable and had many small crystal protrusions. The feather was also very thick and also had a crystal-like structure. It doesn't look like a real feather no matter how I look at it. It looks like some kind of fossil feather. Is it growing on a phoenix? List began to recall the knowledge he had read about the phoenix. The draconic phoenix was not the same as the phoenix in China's legend. It was more similar to the immortal bird in Western legend. It was essentially a fire attribute world of Warcraft. Chapter 495. This chapter is My Horse Feeds the Sheep, the legend of this world. The phoenix had a lifespan of 500 years. When it was about to die, it would pick up many branches and then burn itself to ashes. In the ashes, a new phoenix would be born, and the cycle would repeat. There was also a legend that after the phoenix died, its bones would give birth to worms. The worms would constantly eat each other and eventually grow into a new phoenix. Of course, there was also a legend that phoenixes lived in volcanic craters. They were new creatures born after the death of a fire dragon. 500 years for a reincarnation. This sounds a bit similar to the legend of the Dragon Valley that Virginia told me. It is said that the Dragon Valley is the place where dragons reincarnate. The old dragons will return to the Dragon Valley and arrange the secret of their own reincarnation. It seems that these legends are all connected. For legendary creatures, humans could probably only think of reincarnation, immortality, and other magical manifestations. He put the phoenix feather on the table, then asked a servant to bring a pen and paper and began to write a letter. The letter was addressed to Marquis Merlin, expressing his gratitude and hinting that he would take care of the Taro family. At the same time, he also asked Marquis Merlin for more information about the phoenix feather. Where did he get it from? Was there a real phoenix or something like that? After writing the letter, he lit a candle, scooped out a bit of rosin, and poured it on the envelope. He then took out a long square stamp engraved with the name Lise and pressed it on the rosin, leaving a special mark. He gave it to the servants of Tulip Castle and asked them to help him send the letter. Soon after, he began to concentrate on studying the phoenix feather, holding it in his hand and playing with it. It had a warm texture. Because this phoenix feather was too precious, he was always careful, studying it bit by bit. He forgot the time while studying, and in the blink of an eye, it was almost 12 o'clock. After roughly figuring out the external nature of the phoenix feather, he decided to infuse it with chi, stimulate it, and try to use it to speed up his chi cultivation. When the chi touched the phoenix feather, Liz could feel the temperature in the room instantly rise by 10 degrees. The phoenix feather also immediately seemed to burn. It was not a real flame, but a surging fire magic released in a flame-like flow. Then, through the qi circulation, it entered List's meridians, helping it expand the impetus of the qi. The effect is similar to taking drugs. List's eyes lit up as he carefully manipulated this new mana and transformed it into his own qi. There was a clear boundary between the new Do qi and the Dragon Do qi in his body, but as the Do qi continued to circulate, the boundary gradually blurred and tried to fuse together. His Do qi was originally formed from fusion. The newly born Do qi would definitely become stronger. However, just as this wave of Do qi, which had yet to completely merge, flowed through his meridians towards the position of his heart, something unexpected happened. The mana fire seed in his heart was stimulated by this new energy and suddenly went berserk. It released a huge suction force, crazily devouring the qi in List's body. In the blink of an eye, the Do qi in his body became empty, and his body became limp and powerless. Only his brain remained clear-headed, and he was exceptionally frightened. What's going on? The phoenix feather's magical power clashed with the mana fire seed? Two tigers cannot share one mountain? Was that why the magic fire seed went berserk? List's fear was mixed with impatience. He felt as if he was possessed by the devil, and his body's condition was very bad. Do qi was the source of a knight's power. Once it disappeared, a knight would definitely become an ordinary person. However, he had no way to resist. The mana fire seed in his heart was not restrained at all. Using my body to raise a dragon is really a mistake. He began to regret. He wished he could dig out his heart, find the mana fire seed, and then crush it. However, a change occurred very quickly. After absorbing all the qi in his body, the mana fire seed did not stop but continued to devour. There was no qi in his body, so it moved towards the phoenix feather in List's hand. This strong suction force was transmitted through his meridians into his hands and actually began to devour the phoenix feather's magical flame. These flames seemed to want to resist. However, they were unable to resist and were sucked into the meridians of List's hand. A burning pain spread through his hands and continued to attack his whole body through his meridians until it reached his heart. He felt as if his whole heart had begun to twitch. The piercing pain almost made him numb. He wanted to faint, but the continuous improvement of his physical fitness made him unable to faint. He could only feel the pain clearly. What the hell is going on? What happened? Why did the mana fire seed rebel? Did the phoenix feather stimulate the magical fire seed? He could only think to divert the pain. He wanted to use the magic eye, but there was no qi to circulate, so he could only look at his hands with his naked eyes. The flames of the burning phoenix feather constantly drilled into the skin of his palm. As the mana fire seed continued to absorb, the flames became smaller and smaller, and the luster of the phoenix feather became dimmer and dimmer. He didn't know how much time had passed. For him, it was as long as a century. Finally, the phoenix feather in his hand was completely extinguished without the slightest luster. Then it slowly shattered into powder and disappeared between his fingers. Before it fell to the ground, it had completely turned into flying ash. My priceless phoenix feather is gone just like that. List wanted to cry, but had no tears. He hadn't even started cultivating, and the phoenix feather, worth a few dragon coins, had completely disappeared without a trace. Not waiting for him to cry, a strange feeling quickly emerged, spreading from his heart. The devouring power of the mana fire seed had disappeared. In fact, he couldn't even feel the mana fire seed. Only the strange feeling in his heart, which was connected to his brain, produced a certain feeling. It was as if something had come to life. Roar! A tender cry sounded in his mind. Not only did it put an end to all the pain in his body, but it also gave him a telepathic feeling similar to that of Contract Spriteworm. It was as if the emotions of a tender, newborn, and weak life had occupied a corner of his mind. List was a little confused. At the same time, the warmth in his heart began to move rapidly, quickly moving along his meridians to his palm. He lowered his head, and his eyes suddenly saw a flame igniting in the hollow of his palm. There was no burning sensation, no stinging pain from the flame, only a faint warmth. The flame quickly twisted and formed a small flying creature. It had bat-like wings, a slender body, 2 thick hind legs, and 2 thin and short front legs. It also had a tail that kept swinging and a slightly cute horned head. It was clearly the form of a small mana fire dragon. Roar! The small mana fire dragon opened its mouth and issued a subtle but real roar. All of a sudden, the confused List was pulled back from his daze and became completely sober. Small mana fire dragon? Chapter 496. This chapter is steamed good peas. Thank you for updating. The young fire dragon in the palm of his hand is completely composed of compressed flames. Its eyes, ears, mouth, nose, legs, claws, and wings are all clearly visible. Even the scales on its body can be clearly seen. The eyes condensed by the flames are as bright as a gem, full of life. There is no doubt that this is a real dragon. Fire dragon. The fire dragon, which List had personally bred, had to swallow the entire phoenix feather to hatch from the state of a magic fire seed. Roar! Seeing List staring at it, the young fire dragon seemed a little dissatisfied and opened its mouth to cry. Its voice is very small, it feels like a roar, but in fact, it is similar to the cry of a little puppy. But List can vaguely feel its emotions. Very vague emotions. Much weaker than the telepathic connection after the contract with the elves. But he can barely distinguish the meaning of the emotion. Little Charmander, what form are you in? List asked in a low voice. He didn't expect it to answer, so it was more of a question to itself. He was very curious about the difference between this little fire dragon and a real adult dragon. In terms of composition, an adult dragon had a body of flesh and blood, with bones and muscles, while the little fire dragon was condensed from flames, without a body of flesh and blood. He did not feel the magic of the fire dragon or the power of the dragon from the little fire dragon. It seems to be just a flame composed of its own fighting spirit. But there's a clear boundary between the flame and fighting spirit. This boundary determines that it is an independent individual with a soul and a mind. Roar! The little fire dragon did not understand what List is asking. It made an unknown sound, then flapped its wings and made a flying action. However, it can't leave List's palm. It seems that its body and List's fighting spirit are still connected. During this time, List's body has barely generated some fighting spirit. He tried to run his fighting spirit and found that he can run it again and even affect the little fire dragon. As soon as he absorbed it, the little fire dragon quickly turned into a flame and was absorbed into his meridians. Then it felt a faint anger in its mind. Charmander was very unhappy that it had been sucked into the meridian, so List released it again. The flames condensed and Charmander reappeared. Roar! It seemed to be scolding List. I feel like this guy is too weak. He doesn't have the slightest bit of majesty of a dragon. Is there something wrong? As he thought about it, he suddenly stretched out his other hand. His thumb pressed down on his index finger, and he gave Charmander a finger-flicking spirit art. Patter! It felt real to the touch. His fingers felt like they were flicking on a soft piece of meat. Charmander's head bounced up, and then its entire body tilted and fell on his palm. Charmander waved its limbs and struggled to get up. It opened its mouth and screamed. Roar! Then, a small flame came out of its mouth and sprayed at List's hand, which was still holding a finger snap. However, when the flame touched List's finger, it did not produce any burning effect. He didn't feel anything. Discovering this, Charmander was very disappointed, and even its roar sound was a little weaker. So List took out a thick piece of bass paper and extended it in front of Charmander. Come on, spit out a flame. He gave orders to Charmander in the same way he gave orders to the elves, using a vague, emotional connection. Charmander tilted his head and froze for a while. Then he suddenly opened his mouth and spat out flames. The flames instantly pierced through the thick bast paper and turned half of it into flying ash. There was no sign of burning, and the process of paper to ash was completed directly. The temperature in the room rose a few degrees again. The power of the flame is good, but it is a little small, and there is no eternal mark engraving nature. This is not the real magic of the fire dragon. Charmander is not a real young dragon. Its current state is very wonderful. It seems to be between the magic fire seed and the real fire dragon. Lys grabbed with his left hand and held the little fire dragon in the palm of his hand, enjoying the soft meatball. Looking at the mighty little fire dragon, it couldn't resist his claws at all and could only anxiously roar. Lys did not stop at all. He still remembered the severe pain he felt when a magic fire seed swallowed the phoenix feather. Even if it was a dragon, bullying an honest man like this was intolerable. Without waiting for Charmander to respond, he ran his chi again and put the little fire dragon directly into his chi meridian. Charmander was very angry in the meridian and was determined to get out, but it couldn't resist Lys' chi. With the chi running, it was stuffed all the way into the meridian of the heart. This meridian was very wide, and it was also the place where the magic fire seed chose to live. It was very suitable to imprison Charmander. Roar! In his mind, he could hear the roar of the little fire dragon, like a puppy that had been stepped on. His face had recovered, and he was a little hungry, but his mood was very tangled. This is definitely not the fire dragon I want. This kind of thing is not worthy of being called a dragon. It is not like the majestic dragon under the Dragon Knight. During the magic fire seed period, Lys could not control it, but now he could control it at will. Therefore, there was a huge contrast with his expectations for a dragon, and he couldn't accept it for a while. He took out the dragon milk from the gem space and drank it. Then he took out the cooked World of Warcraft meat and wolfed it down. Finally, he appeased the hunger caused by the depletion of his chi. With the constant wriggling and absorption of the body's stomach, the nutrition was supplemented into the cells, and then the chi was produced to fill the meridian. The chi he had lost was quickly restored by a small half. At this time, he tried to use the original method of training with the magic fire seed to transfer the combat chi to Charmander. He found that although Charmander was very angry, it obediently absorbed the combat chi, then expelled the magic impurities and mixed it with his combat chi. It was still producing dragon combat chi, and the speed was faster, and the efficiency was improved several times. But the consumption also increased more than 10 times, and the little chi that was replenished quickly fell into a state of depletion. The dragon chi produced was less than 1/10. This, I originally had to feed 2 mouths. Now I have to feed several mouths. The little fire dragon's appetite is too big. How can I feed it? He took out the dragon milk and World of Warcraft meat again and continued to eat to supplement nutrition. He also took out a magic potion. After taking the potion, he found that the increased chi still could not fill the little fire dragon's huge appetite. The little fire dragon that could swallow the chi finally calmed down and stayed in the heart position, enjoying the constant flow of chi. But soon its chi supply was cut off. Lys pulled a long face and was upset. I can't feed it like this. No amount of chi can satisfy its appetite. He himself had to continue to train. Without chi, how could he train? For the first time, he didn't look forward to raising a dragon. He was really frightened by the dragon's appetite. He didn't know if this was a super small mini dragon. At this time, he looked up and suddenly noticed that the clock on the wall had pointed to 12:30. The New Year's Day had passed. Right, smoke mission. Chapter 497. The little fire dragon in the form of the fire seed is obviously not a real young dragon. It shows that the expected fire dragon has not really been born yet, and there's still a long way to go before it becomes a dragon knight. However, the little fire dragon in the form of a fire seed has scared Lys half to death. Now it takes so many resources to raise it. If it is really bred and becomes a real little fire dragon, wouldn't it be bankrupt? How do other dragon knight ride dragons? Could it be that the dragon knight can suppress the destiny of country? It doesn't mean that the strength of a dragon is enough to shelter a country alone, but that the resources of a country can be gathered to feed it. Thinking about it this way, it seems that this is really the case. Basically, dragons are controlled by various countries on the continent, and there are no private dragons. The most important thing is that the dragons of all countries seem to be gem dragons and metal dragons. There are only 1 or 2 dragons. I heard that they are elemental dragons. He was in a trance, and even more sad. The fire dragon is an elemental dragon, and most elemental dragons are evil dragons. They don't produce and can't contribute to me. Isn't it more expensive to feed it? Gem dragons can produce gems, and the sale of gems is definitely a huge profit. Metal dragons can produce metal, and metal is a resource that countries compete for. What can the fire dragon do? Produce volcanoes? Or burn boilers? However, as soon as this idea came up, List had an idea. It seems that it can really burn boilers. The current fire dragon brick factory and public bathrooms are driven by the fire dragon magic. If my little fire dragon grows up, will it be able to provide more fire dragon magic? Fire dragon magic is an efficient energy source, clean and pollution-free. Once used reasonably, it may be able to replace coal, oil, and natural gas and launch a new energy revolution. Thinking about it this way, the fire dragon is still very useful. Besides, the elemental dragon is more powerful. Once I ride the fire dragon, can I beat the sapphire dragon? Or even seize the entire Grand Duchy of Sapphire, and even the sapphire dragon? List thought about it fiercely. Only then did he slowly calm his emotions. In any case, the fire dragon has been bred in his body, and he can realize his dream at any time and become a dragon knight. If he didn't have enough resources, he would work hard to earn money by farming. If he didn't have enough strength, he would continue to preserve his strength. Countless perfection-level Sky Knights had prepared all their resources, but they could not find the dragon, so they could only die in frustration. Compared to them, he had already completed the most important step. All that was left was some preparatory work. With smoke missions and many industries, it was only a matter of time before they developed. Little Charmander, I will definitely raise you up. List narrowed his eyes and had another idea. Also, if there are no other dragons, I want to sign a contract with you and share half of your lifespan with me, so that I can become the lord of the dragon domain. It would take Charmander more than 100 years to grow up. List didn't have that long of a lifespan to wait. Becoming the dragon lord was a necessary step, unless the little fire dragon suddenly grew up. Of course, right now, everything was still too hasty. First, he had to think of a way to breed Charmander. He didn't want to take decades to breed. List focused his attention and called out the smoke mission again to check the new mission. It takes a lot of resources to breed the little fire dragon in the form of a fire seed into a real fire dragon. But don't forget the property left by the fire dragon. That is the real nourishment for the little fire dragon. Please feed the little fire dragon in the form of a fire seed. Reward: amber containing magic power. The content of the mission quickly inspired him. The property left by the fire dragon? This must be the fire dragon magic in the volcanic glass. It must be like this. These fire dragon magic will help the development of the mini fire dragon. After a long time, I still have to squeeze out my fire dragon magic. It was not easy to collect fire dragon magic. Last time, in order to stimulate the dragon bone magic array and breed the magic fire seed, most of the fire dragon magic mined on Black Horse Island had been consumed. Now, these fire dragon magic would have to be used to feed the mini fire dragon. Maybe there wouldn't be any left. The fire dragon jar that contained the fire dragon magic was in his gem space. He did not choose to start feeding it now. After all, this was Tulip Castle. If the fire dragon magic leaked, it would be very troublesome. He also didn't pay attention to the reward of the smoke mission, which was the magic amber. He calmed down and began to sleep. Early the next morning, List left Tulip Castle. Returning to his territory, he couldn't wait to take out the fire dragon jar, extract a little fire dragon magic, and try to absorb it. In fact, it was not troublesome at all. When he released the mini fire dragon, the little guy immediately smelled the smell of the fire dragon magic. It kept shouting, "Oh roar," releasing a very strong desire. List did not give it the fire dragon magic, but tried to tame it like he tamed the blizzard beast. This age of the little fire dragon was probably the most suitable age for education. It would not be so easy to train it when it grew up. He didn't know how to ride a dragon, so he could only explore it himself. Do a somersault, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! Do a somersault, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! Do a somersault, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! After several repetitions, the mini fire dragon reluctantly somersaulted and got a little fire dragon magic from List. He saw it open its mouth, and the fire dragon magic was sucked up in one gulp, leaving nothing behind. Then, a little impure magic was released from its body and mixed into List's do chi. He felt that the quality of his do chi has been slightly improved. This is probably the process of dragon do chi advancement. Flap your wings, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! Lift your hind legs, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! Stick up your butt, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! Sing a song, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! Sing, fire dragon magic. Oh, roar! Sing magic. Oh, roar! In the end, the mini fire dragon was so anxious that it still did not choose to sing. List had to give up. It seems that you really can't sing, so lick my finger, and I will give you the fire dragon magic. The mini fire dragon had to stick out its tongue and lick List's finger, and then get a lot of fire dragon magic. For the whole morning, List did nothing. He had fun feeding the mini fire dragon and building a relationship with the mini fire dragon through training. He felt that the mini fire dragon had the pride of a dragon. Even though it was born in List's body, it still disdained List. But for the sake of the fire dragon magic, it had to lower its proud head. Life will always smooth its edges and corners. Gradually, all the fire dragon magic in a fire dragon was fed to the mini fire dragon, and it finally let out a comfortable burp, retracted into List's do chi meridian, ran to the heart position, and slept. It was full. The smoke mission was also completed. Chapter 498. The amber containing magic power was quickly delivered to List's hands without him having to worry about it. Sir, this is a strange stone dug out from the sand and stones by the serfs responsible for expanding the Flower Port's pier square. Isaiah personally sent a transparent yellow stone to the castle. It is as transparent as a gem, and there is a sprite worm inside. Sprite worm? List quickly took the palm-sized flat stone, which was yellow in color and very transparent. The most wonderful thing was that it was wrapped in a fat sprite worm. The sprite worm curled up into a donut shape and looked lifelike. There were some impurities, such as leaves around it. The overall shape indicated that it was amber, the amber rewarded by the smoke mission. Is this amber containing magic power? List quickly released magic eyes to observe the amber. Suddenly, he found a faint magic power radiating with chaotic colors. Moreover, it was unexpectedly emitted from a sprite worm. The sprite worm wrapped in amber had yellow and black stripes on its body. List didn't know if it was its original appearance or if it had changed color in the amber. This surprised him. A sprite worm that has turned into amber can also have magic power? As far as he knew, amber was a drop of pine resin buried underground for thousands of years. Under the action of pressure and heat, it petrified and formed a gem-like stone. When the pine resin dripped down, it just happened to wrap the small sprite on the trunk, turning it into a magnificent fossil. However, amber on Earth was generally formed 40 to 60 million years ago. After all, it took a long time to fossilize pine resin. List didn't know how long it would take for amber to form in this world, but it was definitely not something that could be done in a short period of time. Otherwise, it would just be rosin, not amber. List played with the amber for a moment and said to Isaiah, "Apart from this stone, are there any other stones found at the scene?" "None at the moment." "Keep looking. It is best to turn over the sand and stones in that area to see if there are other similar stones." Isaiah asked, "Sir, what is this stone? I have never seen it." "Amber is a stone formed from rosin after tens of millions of years." "Do you see the sprite worm?" "I suspect that it is a sprite worm from tens of millions of years ago." Tens of millions of years ago. Isaiah was speechless. The history of humans in this world was not even clear for a few hundred years. The few early records were all attributed to the Moon Empire, so it was hard to explain. It was unimaginable tens of millions of years ago. Even List was confused. Were the humans here evolved? If they were evolved, then how did elves and dragons evolve? There was also the siren. According to she was born in a shell. There seemed to be no relevant evolutionary chain between a shell and a siren in human form. Therefore, no one knew what the world was like tens of millions of years ago. If you let the serfs look for more of this amber, they may find that the amber contains more things from tens of millions of years ago. The pine resin drips down and wraps around the things from that time. Then, it can continue to be preserved, just like the sprite worm preserved in this amber. Isaiah was also curious. He replied in a loud voice, "Yes, sir, I will personally supervise the serfs in looking for the amber." After the administrative officer left, List was still playing with the amber. He began to think. He always believed that every reward from the smoke mission was valuable, except for the wind peregrine falcon. That damned bird, it never came back. He should have killed it and eaten it back then. Since the smoke mission sent this amber and specifically mentioned that it contains magic power, what does it mean? Is it a natural magic equipment, like the black pearl? That's not right. The magic power does not originate from the amber, but from the spirit worm in the amber. However, the spirit worm should have integrated with the amber, right? Tens of millions of years of infiltration. The amber and the things wrapped have long been inseparable, leaving only the original structure. So what is the use of this amber? Is it an ornament? Liz shook his head and made a decision. Let Chrissy study it to see if she can find any valuable clues. It just so happens that she is about to become my second great wizard. Chrissy's promotion to a great wizard had not happened yet, but it would happen soon, because the smoke mission had already plucked this thread of fate. Mission: Flowertown Restaurant Chef Pavel is very interested in the tofu reward issued by the Lord. However, he has tried a variety of bean products, but was unable to make tofu. This has already cost him all his savings, but he still does not give up. Why not support him in continuing to study tofu? Reward: a great wizard. Tofu. This was List's biggest complaint. He knew that tofu was made from beans, but what was brine, he still did not understand. He had offered a reward early on, hoping that someone could make beans into soft gelatinous food. However, more than a year had passed, and still no chef had been able to complete this research. However, it had spawned many surprises: fermented beans, soy milk bean sprouts. Now, it seemed that the dawn of tofu had arrived. List did not hesitate to support Pavel with 10 gold coins and let him continue to study tofu. He also told Bao Pavel everything he knew about tofu, hoping that it would help Bao Pavel develop the long-awaited tofu sooner. It would also allow Chrissy Truth to advance to a great wizard sooner. Apart from Chrissy, there was only Paris among the wizards of the fief. Paris was obviously not mature enough, so it could only be that Chrissy was about to advance. In a magic workshop. Due to the lack of magic ingredients, Chrissy only needed to take 7 or 8 days a month to make magic potions from the fief's magic ingredients. The rest of the time was used to study advanced magic and magic arrays. In essence, advanced magic was an even more advanced magic array. Sir Viscount, why are you here? Chrissy was a little surprised. List had just come to pick up the magic ingredients yesterday. List smiled. Are you still studying advanced magic? I'm studying black pearls and pink pearls. These 2 pearls are natural magic arrays and have given me a lot of inspiration. I have also begun to try to make them into magic equipment. Black pearls and pink pearls are indeed very good research materials, but I have brought you another precious material, which may give you new inspiration. With that, Liz took out a palm-sized oblate amber and handed it to Chrissy. She only took a glance. Chrissy exclaimed, "What is this, a gem? It is so beautiful. I have never seen such a gem before, and it even contains a sprite worm." This is amber, a treasure formed from a wonderful misunderstanding tens of millions of years ago. List explained the origin of amber. It was not an exaggeration to say that amber was a treasure. Chapter 499. This chapter is Bitter Tree. Reward added. Chrissy couldn't bear to part with the amber sprite worm and immediately prepared to study its secrets, which required time. List did not stay in the magic workshop for long. After returning to the castle, he began to try to cultivate. Recently, he had advanced to a Sky Knight. Mid-ranked Chi was reborn into high-ranked Chi, and then continuously evolved into Dragon Chi, which made his cultivation plan stumble. So far, he had not figured out much. He needed to wait for his body to stabilize before he could properly calculate the data. However, cultivating Red Sun Rising Fire Burning was not a problem. The high-ranked Chi secret manual's moves were already very vague. This high-ranked Chi secret manual had a total of 17 moves. It was divided into two grades. One was the ordinary moves, and the other was the accumulated moves. There were 12 ordinary moves and 5 accumulated moves. These 5 moves were Red Sun Full Wheel, Rising Sun, Blazing Sun Piercing, Setting Sun Falling, and Burning Red Clouds. High-rank Chi secret manuals did not have the ultimate meaning. The 12 ordinary moves were not difficult. With List's memory and perception, it would not take him much time to learn them. In fact, he had already begun to study these 12 ordinary moves when he was an elite Earth Knight. Although he could not use them with mid-rank Chi, he could still simulate them. Now, he only needed to practice and be calm during cultivation. However, the accumulated moves were much more difficult. They involved the operation mechanism of high-ranked Chi and required a lot of practice and experimentation before he could truly succeed in cultivating them. List had not learned any of the accumulated moves for the time being. So it was. Time quickly passed, and it was night. After dinner, List immediately rushed to the Seascape Villa. A Chi, who had salvaged the sky ship, should have returned. When he arrived at the Seascape Villa, it was indeed so. A Chi greeted him at the door. "Brother, you're back. I came back in the morning. When did you come to the house?" "When it was dark. By the way, brother, a Chi has moved all the valuable things from the sunken ship." A Chi took List to another room, which was stacked with a lot of ragged things. "It's all here. There are a lot of boxes that can't be opened." "Box?" Now that the box was mentioned, List was inexplicably excited. First, he tidied up all the boxes and put them aside. He did not open them immediately. These boxes were densely packed with patterns, similar to the floating bottles used by the Sun's Child to send messages. The patterns formed some relatively abstract patterns, vaguely distinguishable as a forest. In the forest, there were mountains, rivers, bears, eagles, fish, and some abstract humans. There are also some strange musical instruments, bows, and arrows. There's no lock. Evidently, this chest also required the blood of Old Phil of the tanner's shop. I'll have to collect some blood from Old Phil. The more, the better. However, I heard that the middle-aged widow that Old Phil found seems to be pregnant. List thought to himself. Since the floating bottle was not very useful, he had not been paying attention to Old Phil recently. After all, he had already accumulated quite a lot of blood. If the middle-aged widow that Old Phil found was really pregnant and gave birth to a child, there would be no need to worry about the bloodline of the descendants of the sun. After sorting out the boxes, the remaining rags were all damaged objects. It could barely be seen that there were pots, barrels, swords, bows and arrows, wooden sticks, armor, ropes, and so on. There were also some stones inlaid on the damaged objects, which were probably gems, but were now dull. How long has it been soaked in the sea for even gems to decay into stones? List cast magic eyes and saw that there was no magic reaction in this pile of rags. It can be inferred that the date of the sky ship's sinking was definitely not in the near future, at least hundreds or even thousands of years ago. If it was not in the last 100 years, then it means that the sky ship did not come to pick up the descendants of the sun, which is not in conflict with the appearance of the communication floating bottle. However, why did the sky ship sink in the waters near Black Horse Island hundreds of years ago? Black Horse Island was an island formed by the volcanic eruption of the fire dragon. List wondered if the fire dragon's death had something to do with the sky ship. Perhaps the sky ship had come to excavate the fire dragon's ruins, or perhaps the sky ship and the fire dragon had fought each other, and both sides suffered heavy losses and sank here. Thinking of this, he asked Achi, is there any sign of damage to this shipwreck? I don't know, brother. Half of the shipwreck is buried in the mud on the seabed. Achi only cleaned the cabin part. However, the part exposed to the mud, the main structure does not seem to be damaged, but a lot of the ship's boards are gone. There are also a lot of fish and shrimp living in it. It was normal for some of the less strong structures to decay after sinking for too long. So did you see human bones on the ship? I don't think so. The cabin is very clean, only some boxes. Listening to Achi, List immediately ruled out the possibility that the fire dragon and the sky ship were both wounded. With the power of the fire dragon, it was possible to tear the sky ship apart. He suddenly asked again, Achi, what's the difference between that shipwreck and my ship? There should be a big difference between the sky ship and ordinary ships. Achi thought about it and replied, there seems to be no mast, and Achi can't tell. Brother, the shipwreck is too old, and the hull is covered with all kinds of corals. List did not force her. Sooner or later, he would salvage the sky ship. So he said directly, Achi, you go and rest. I'm going to carefully study what's in these boxes. Well, Achi is going to read. Recently, Achi has been working hard to learn magic arrays. My good Achi. Sending the siren, Achi away. List directly put a box into the gem space, and then smeared old Phil's blood in the gem space. But to his surprise, there was no reaction at all when the blood was smeared. What's going on? Is everything in the gem space still, and even the reaction of this blood is still? List waited for a moment and chose to take out the box again. After taking it out, the reaction began instantly. He saw the lines on the box, and magic threads flashed, forming a dynamic picture. Bears, eagles, people, mountains, and flowing water flashed one by one. Finally, it seemed that the setting sun was falling, hitting the lid of the box. There was a click. The box opened. List learned the lesson of salvaging the treasure chest from the shipwreck, and quickly put the box into the gem space to prevent the items inside from being exposed to the air and directly oxidizing and decaying. He put into the gem space. He extended his spirit and began to observe the items in the box in another way. What surprised him was that it was filled with seeds. The seeds of some kind of plant. Seeds with a touch of magic power. Chapter 500. It was a box of seeds shaped like fava beans, but they were certainly not fava beans because of their gorgeous colors. They were black, white, red, yellow, purple, green, blue, gray. All of them were monochromatic, but the colors were different, and there were many more colors than the rainbow. Some of the seeds could be observed with magic eyes. The magic power of chaos had no color attribute, but most of the seeds did not have magic light. These should be the seeds of the same kind of plant. The ones with magic power are potion seeds, and the ones without magic power are ordinary seeds. List swallowed and quickly denied this judgment. No, the same green fava beans, some have magic power, some have no magic power, and the other colors are the same. Fava beans of the same color should be the same kind, but they showed two forms of magic power and no magic power. Moreover, the magic power of the fava beans was not the same, and even List found that the magic power of several fava beans was almost invisible. These are probably because they have been stored for too long, and the magic power has been lost, resulting in their current appearance. Does this mean that these fava beans were once potion seeds? Thinking of this, his heart was even more fiery. With so many kinds of potions, he was simply going to make a fortune. However, he quickly furrowed his brows. There are potion seeds, but I don't have the relevant sprites. How can I plant them? The growth of potions was inseparable from the influence of the worm stalk. Once separated from the worm stalk, the potion would soon lose its magic power and return to ordinary plants. This box of potion seeds was very obvious. They were not any of the plants known to List, and naturally, there was no corresponding sprite worm. Therefore, the idea of planting potions was just a dream. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured from head to toe. His heart was cold. Am I rejoicing for nothing? He was stunned for a moment, but soon regained his composure. There were still 12 boxes left, which could be examined slowly. Maybe there were sprite worms behind. It seemed unlikely. Sprite worms did not have such a long lifespan. He opened the second box in the same way and immediately put it into the gem space and then examined it again. This box was also full of seeds, but it was a kind of oblate seed. Golden yellow, the size of a pinky nail, it was also a potion seed. Some had magic, some didn't. The third box was filled with seeds. The fourth box was filled with seeds. All the way to the 10th box were filled with potion seeds. Each of the 10 boxes contained different seeds, all of which List had never seen before. Some were like beans, some were like grains, some were as big as a fist, and some were as small as sesame seeds. With such a large number and complete variety of potion seeds, it should have been a joyous harvest. But the more List looked at it, the more he felt suffocated. Only the seeds were given, but not the elves. This was like seeing, but not being able to eat. He was anxious. There were only 3 boxes left. With a solemn and stirring heart, he opened the first box. This time, the box did not contain potion seeds, but books. Books were neatly stacked vertically, and there were complicated characters on the spines of the books. He could tell at a glance that it was the Sun language. He could even recognize quite a few words. He hadn't read the diary of a descendant of the Phillips Sun for nothing. XXX, Sun, Tower XX, Construction XX. List saw the title of one of the books. He couldn't recognize the Sun language, but he could guess the general idea. It seemed to be a book on how to build the Sun Tower. He then looked at the next book. XXX Transformation XX Bear X. The next few books were similar in format. They were all XXX Transformation XX Eagle X. XXX Transformation XX Leopard X, XXX Transformation XXXXXX, and so on. List didn't recognize many of the Sun language, so he could only guess. The first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth books all seemed to be about transformations. Could it be that the Sun's children can transform into bears, eagles, leopards, and so on? He pulled out one of the books, titled XXX Transformation XX Bear X. The book was well preserved and showed no signs of decay. The cover was very soft and delicate, like some kind of leaf. The paper inside was also very thin, similar to the paper he found in the messenger bottle. On the first page, there was a beautiful, colorful drawing. If not for the traces of lines, List would have thought it was a photograph. In the drawing was a huge bear with brown fur and huge fangs. As he continued to flip the pages, it was densely packed with Sun language. At a glance, List found that the Sun language he had learned from the diary of a descendant of the Sun Philip was not enough to support the content in the book at all. Indeed, he could recognize a few Sun language words, but he couldn't understand them at all. Dizzy, let's change to the next book. The next book was XXX Transformation XXXX. The first colorful drawing was of a dolphin. So the title of this book should be XXX Transformation XX Dolphin X. The next book was a colorful drawing of a tree that could walk. So the title of this book should be XXX Transformation XX Tree X. The next book was a colorful drawing of a chubby bird that seemed to be unable to fly and walked on its feet. List had never seen it before, so he couldn't be sure what it was called. He couldn't even find a comparable species. It had the posture of a penguin, but it looked like an oversized owl. Let's just call it Moonbeast. Anyway, it's just a translated name, so it doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. So this book was called XXX Transformation XX Moonbeast X. At this point, it could be learned that the transformation magic of the Sun Child included 6 kinds of transformation: bear, leopard, eagle, dolphin, tree, and moonbeast. Transformation magic, which makes me think of the profession druid. It seems that in the notes left behind by Curtis Truth, there was mention of druids, juxtaposing them with mages, liches, alchemists, and so on. Perhaps the first 3 Sun words in the title mean druid? Druid Transformation XX Bear X? The rest of the Sun language in the title couldn't be guessed no matter how hard he tried. He quickly put down the book and continued reading. But for the following books, he didn't recognize a single Sun word in the title, let alone guess what it meant. The second to last box was still a book. This made Liszt a little conflicted. He liked to read, but Sun language was a foreign language book, and with his vocabulary, he couldn't understand it all. He wasn't an archaeologist who could spend a lot of time studying these books, summarizing, and determining the meaning of each Sun word. So, these books had the same effect on him as those potion seeds. They all seemed very precious, but in fact, they were useless. There's only one last box left. Don't tell me that this box still contains potion seeds or books. Liszt opened the last box uneasily. Immediately, the contents of the box came into view. It wasn't potion seeds, nor was it a Sun book. Instead, it was a golden scepter that had been broken in two. One was a metal rod carved with dense patterns, and the other was a decoration shaped like the sun that emitted a brilliant light. In the center of the radiant sun was a huge, broken golden gem. Chapter 501. Although the golden sun scepter was broken into two, one could still see how magnificent it was when it was intact. This was definitely a divine artifact of extraordinary value, and the person who possessed it was definitely a great figure with great power and influence. Liszt reached out and took out the remaining half of the scepter. It was a stick with a metallic texture, but he could not tell what kind of metal it was made of. The weight was moderate, slightly lighter than an iron stick of the same size. The patterns on it were very regular, with rings on top of each other, but he could not tell what it meant. At the end of the scepter was a hexagonal cylinder the length of a finger. At the cross-section of the fracture, there was a crisscross gap. It was not cut or smashed, but seemed like a fracture caused by some kind of stress. So it is not a type of metal, but a metal stick that was poured layer by layer. Liszt looked at the color of the fracture and concluded. This was because the fracture had changes similar to growth rings. In the middle was a transparent triangle, only as thick as a finger, like some kind of crystal. The outer ring was a silver-white metal, circular, and wrapped around the triangular crystal. The outer ring was a gray metal, hexagonal structure. Then there was a light blue metal, circular structure. The outermost ring was a golden metal, also circular, and as thick as a baby's arm. The colors of these 5 layers were clearly defined, but they were very closely arranged, and the thickness was uniform, almost blending into one. This kind of forging technique was beyond Liszt's understanding. At least the Grand Duchy of Sapphire did not have an iron knight, which could forge such a precise metal. He put down the lower half of the sun scepter and picked up the upper half. The structure of the sun at the top of the upper half was hard to describe. Inside was a ring, and the center of the ring was inlaid with a golden gemstone the size of an adult man's fist. The gemstone was not round, but irregular meteorite-shaped, transparent like a diamond. Unfortunately, the gemstone was already broken, and the largest crack was as thick as a fingernail. But even so, the golden gemstone was still blinding, which showed how dazzling it was when it was intact. Outside the inner ring, there was another layer of rings. The shape of this ring was somewhat similar to the shape of the golden moon wheel in the legend of Shu Mountain. It was round, but there was a small gap, like a crescent moon. On the outer ring, in the shape of a crescent moon, lights of various sizes were arranged. They were lights represented by long metal needles. Some were long, some were short, and there was no pattern to their arrangement. However, the longest needle was at an angle of 45 degrees up and 45 degrees down. Whether it was the inner ring or the outer ring, the material was the same as the golden metal of the handle. What kind of divine weapon is this? Was it a weapon or a magical equipment? Is it a status symbol or a magic staff wielded by a sorcerer? Liszt connected the 2 parts of the scepter together. The fractured surface could be matched, but there was no reaction. As far as he could see, none of the magicians in this world were waving their magic wands. They might wear some magic equipment to enhance their magic power, but they didn't need to wave their magic wands or chant magic spells. As for the weapon and equipment level of the Sun Scepter, List couldn't judge it either. According to the information he had obtained from night novels and magic books, the top divine weapon was the Dragon's Soul. A weapon forged by infusing the dragon's soul into the dragon's bones had amazing power. Next were the Dragon Elf weapon and the Dragon Tooth weapon. However, none of these three weapons had appeared in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. In addition, there were the Great Elf weapon and the Dragonbone weapon. There was a Great Elf weapon in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. It was the Archduke's sword, the Wailing Cage sword. As for the Dragonbone weapon, the sword that emitted blue flames in the hands of Marquis Bull during the Battle of Iron Hoof Island, made List wonder if it was a Dragonbone weapon. Then there were the Little Elf weapon and the Gemstone weapon. List had both the Swift Shadow Bow and the Red Blood sword. Judging from materials used to make the Sun Scepter, it is at most a gemstone weapon. However, the gemstone inlaid is a bit too big. Generally, gemstones were very small. A gemstone the size of an adult man's fist was really rare. Moreover, its golden color was different from that of ordinary gemstones. List had seen a similar color of topaz. At the Longtaro Castle during the New Year's festival, Grandpa gave Cousin Raleigh a topaz pendant, but the color of the topaz was yellow, not gold. Unfortunately, the golden gemstone had been broken, and I could not see any magic power in it. It had become a useless gemstone. List put all 13 boxes into the gem space. Although he couldn't understand those books and didn't know how to plant those seeds, he might find their value in the future. As for the Sun Scepter, he planned to keep it, even if it was already useless. He would find a chance to repair it later. It could still be used to keep up appearances. Except for the things in the boxes, the other things that Achi salvaged were of no value. It cannot be said that they were worthless. Perhaps they had high archaeological value, but the archaeological value was still worthless for List at present. Achi, I've taken the boxes away. You should rest early and don't stay up late. Okay. Leaving the Sea View Villa and returning to the castle, List was not sleepy. The mini fire dragon was still sleeping in the heart position and would not wake up for a while. After reading a book similar to the Sun Scripture, List's eyes were swollen. He sighed and put the book back. Let's go to sleep. I'll get up tomorrow to make a glass greenhouse and plant a batch of potion seeds. List got to work. Early the next morning, he asked for a batch of glass produced by the Fire Dragon Brick Factory. Now that the glass had been officially put into production, the cooperation with Tulip Castle was continuing and the profit sharing was being negotiated. Glass that could be mass-produced was bound to hit the crystal market. The price was not easy to grasp. With the discovery of quartz, List had sent people to many places on Coral Island to find quartz ore. The raw materials were plentiful, although the glass still had a lot of impurities and the color was not transparent enough. But it was more than enough to make a glass greenhouse. List directed the servants to bond and fix the glass with wood and rubber. Soon, a small glass greenhouse was built in the castle's garden. Next, List selected a batch of seeds without magic power from the potion seeds and tried to plant them. He watered and fertilized them, waiting for them to germinate. To ensure the indoor temperature, he also placed a small magic fire dragon in the glass greenhouse. With the small magic fire dragon baking, the temperature of the glass greenhouse was enough to reach more than 10 degrees, which was more suitable for the seeds to germinate. Seeds without magic power can hopefully still germinate. He wanted to see what kind of plants could be grown by planting them. Knowing the type of plant, he could buy the corresponding sprite worm and plant the potion. Even if there was no corresponding sprite worm, he could still cultivate it generation by generation. In case a sprite worm was born in one generation, wouldn't he be able to plant the potion again? Chapter 502. This chapter is Hua Fei Hua. Empty words. 10,000 rewards. Gort, who was responsible for glass sales negotiations in Coral City, bought 3 second-hand cargo ships for the territory. The cargo ships had not yet been refurbished and were temporarily dispatched to the new port of Black Horse Island to participate in the salvage of the Sky Ship. With the combined pulling power of 6 ships, the Sky Ship was finally dragged from the bottom of the sea to the seaside. List watched the salvage at the scene. At this time, it was snowing heavily, and the beach was covered with a layer of ice and snow. But snowflakes could not bring List, who was wearing a frac abier and a gold-rimmed red and black cloak, a cold experience. Since he was promoted to a Sky Knight and gained high-grade fire attribute Chi, he was no longer afraid of the cold. And the high-grade fire attribute Chi was gradually changing towards Dragon Chi. The fire dragon was obviously not afraid of the cold, and List, who was covered in Dragon Chi, naturally could not feel the cold. The feathered chocobo, Loki, was also not afraid of the cold. Its tall legs stepped on the snow, and there was a thick cuticle to keep it warm. "My lord, the sunken ship has been towed up," Blair said excitedly. List naturally saw it. The overall shape of the sky ship could be seen in its entirety. It was a ship more similar to the ancient ships of China, without masts and sails. The hull was narrow and slender, but it was very large. Overall, it was larger than the most advanced three-masted sailing ship of this era. He had ridden in the palace's exclusive three-masted fast sailing ship, which was obviously not as big as the sky ship. Blair was still excitedly analyzing. There are no sails and masts. It should be a paddle boat. Looking at its hull, covered with coral and shells, it must have been sunk for at least hundreds of years. Hundreds of years ago, the Grand Duchy of Sapphire was still a deserted island. I don't know which country developed such a large paddle boat. Paddle boat? List did not correct Blair's analysis, but said, "You command the salvage staff to carefully clean up the items on the ship after dragging the sunken ship up. Also, clean up all the coral and shells attached to it. I want to see the original appearance of this sunken ship." "Yes, my lord." Blair quickly commanded the serfs to clean up the ship. List rode on his chocobo, flying around the airship to observe it. Because he knew that the ship sailed in the sky, he could see that the ship was a little strange from this perspective. It was hard to tell how it flew. It did not have wings like an airplane, nor did it have air sacs like a hot air balloon. List was more willing to believe that the sky ship relied on magic rather than physical means of flight. Perhaps it was some kind of magic array. The sky ship might even be a piece of magical equipment. But now, this ship in the sky was modeled to the point that it looked like the habitat of shrimps and crabs. 13 treasure chests containing potion seeds, books, and scepters were taken away by Chi, as well as some other items that looked decent. There was basically nothing good on this ship. The serfs kept cleaning, but what they took out were piles and piles of junk. There were rusty weapons, broken utensils, and a lot of things that couldn't be identified. However, just when List was not looking forward to it, in the second half of the shipwreck that was buried in silt, the serfs dug out the silt from the cabin and finally found something good. There were a total of 3 cabins that were intact. One of the cabins was full of wood. He didn't know what kind of wood it was, but it was just branches that were no thicker than an arm. He didn't know if it was buried for too long, but the branches seemed to have sprouted midway, but eventually died and became wood. List took a branch and cast Magic Eye, but he didn't find any magic. He tried to break it, and found that the hardness of the branch was even harder than the thorny ironwood, comparable to the hundreds of years old rockwood. "Very good wood. Transport them to the port town to be stacked. For the time being, they are not allowed to be used." Without fully understanding what these branches were for, List would not let them be used casually. The second cabin was full of metal ores. They had a light blue metallic luster and were not rusty. This color quickly reminded List of the light blue metal in the 4th ring of the Sun Scepter. These two kinds of metals were obviously the same kind of metal, worth collecting and studying. In the 3rd cabin, there were no treasures, but there were skeletons. "My lord, there are a total of 21 skeletons. Only bones are left, and their clothes have long been tattered. Bring out a skeleton." Soon, a skeleton was brought in front of List. The white bones were not much different from those of humans, which showed that the Sun Child race was indeed a human race. Philip and Old Phil, the descendants of the Sun, were normal humans, and their ancestors were unlikely to look like aliens. But there were still subtle differences. From a skeleton, it could be seen that the Sun Child had a longer leg ratio than humans, and had a pair of long legs. Apart from that, List didn't find anything new. Moreover, he suddenly thought, maybe the long legs are just an exception. From old Phil, I didn't find long legs. On the contrary, I have a pair of long legs. He didn't know if it was because they ate too much long taro, but the taro family all had long legs. This is a female skeleton. Marcus, who participated in the salvage of the sunken ship, had already washed the mud off his body and walked over. My lord, this female is probably 8 meters tall, and her skeleton is a little slender. Judging from the degree of closure of her epiphysis, she may be underage. Female? Underage? Teacher Marcus, you know how to observe bones? Unlike the nobles who practice qi, when we commoners practice qi in the Night Academy, there are teachers who teach us how to judge the direction of the meridians based on the bones. I learned a little more and have seen the bones of many different people. At that time, I even thought about how to use bones to make my archery more lethal. I see. Then continue to analyze this skeleton for me. Yes, my lord. Marcus squatted down and observed the bones bit by bit. The leg ratio is longer than the average person. The pelvis has not been opened, probably has not given birth. Other than that, I can't judge. After that, no more bones were taken out, and Marcus analyzed them one by one. All the skeletons belonged to minors, ranging from 9 meters to 3 meters with different heights. There were males and females, and their leg ratio was more prominent. But there were more differences from humans. It could be said that the Sun's child race was a race of humans with longer legs. At this time, the cleaning of the ship's exterior was also completed. A large number of corals and shells were peeled off, revealing the true appearance of the ship in the sky, a ship with an outer shell almost peeled off, leaving only the main structure. Chapter 503. This chapter is titled, My Horse Feeds the Sheep. With a gentle push on Loki's neck, List flew into the air and landed on the deck of the sky ship. Following the path Costo pointed out, he could clearly see what the keel of the sky ship looked like. It was indeed a whole branch. The branch started from the bow of the ship. There was no collision angle, but 2 branches extended to the bottom of the ship, forming 3 parallel lines with the main branch. These 3 parallel lines formed the main keel and the side keels on both sides. Together, they formed the main structure of the ship. On top of the 3 keels, there were many branches that extended to both sides, forming the ribs. In other words, the main core structure of the sky ship was made up of a branch. However, this branch was very standard and symmetrical, as if it was cast from a mold. The other structures were constantly pieced together on this trunk. If one looked closely, one could still see that many parts were the same as the keel, a whole branch. This was a sky ship that was grown out of various branches. It's really incredible. Liz could not help but exclaim, this kind of technology is definitely beyond this era. No nobles in our country have this kind of technology. Sir, our country's shipbuilding industry is the most developed. If our country can't build such a big ship, I think only the Moon Empire has the ability to build such a big ship. Marcus, who had climbed up, analyzed confidently. This ship may have sunk at the bottom of the sea for thousands of years. The Moon Empire was a good pot. Anything that could not be understood or explained could be put on the Moon Empire. Naturally, List would not reveal that this was a sky ship made by the Sun child race from another continent. So he also put the blame. I think so too. Only the Moon Empire had the power to build such a big ship. We actually salvaged a sunken ship from the Moon Empire. This is so great. Blair praised sincerely. The glory of the night really favors you and this territory. In traditional knowledge, the ruins of the Moon Empire were synonymous with treasures. This sunken ship had obviously been identified as a type of ruins. Salvaging it was a common way to obtain treasures in Knight's novels. It was a way that everyone was eager to get rich. Of course, in List territory, except for the commercial and agricultural income, all other products belonged to List. This sunken ship also completely belonged to List. Costo, you're more familiar with ships. Do you think it's possible to transform this ship into a sailboat? List tested the hardness of the branch. Even though it had been soaked in the sea for countless years, It was still strong and showed no signs of decay. The main structure of the ship was still intact. Costo thought about it carefully. I think it's possible, my lord. We have stonewood in our inventory to make masts and thorny ironwood to supplement the other parts of the hull. Together with the intact keel of this sunken ship from the Moon Empire, we can make a fast sailboat. However, we don't have the shipbuilding technology. List transported a lot of serfs and craftsmen from the mainland, but he didn't have any shipbuilders. Only the Sapphire Grand Duchy had shipbuilders, especially those who could build large sailboats. The technology was concentrated in the hands of a few great clans. If we don't have the skills, we'll just have to figure it out. We'll train our own boatmen. He had even refurbished a few cargo ships, so there's no need to worry about not having enough EXP. With rubber as an excellent bonding material, I believe that even a randomly assembled ship can sail on the sea. List said solemnly. The flower, the thorns, the pearl, the mangrove, and the 3 newly purchased freighters. The serfs in the territory could also learn a lot of shipbuilding techniques. Advanced sailboats were definitely not easy to build, but sailboats in this era did not have high technical content. With rubber instead of rivets, shipbuilding technology was reduced to the level of building blocks to a large extent. As long as one wasn't a fool, one could build a sailboat of this era with enough practice. The tree branches, light blue metal, and 21 skeletons in the cabin were transported to Port Town for storage. As for the main body of the sky ship, Liz spent several days studying it. The only thing he was sure of was that the tree branches used to make the keel were the same as the one stored in the cabin. There were no more discoveries, so he handed it over to Blair to organize the serfs and try to convert the sky ship into a sailboat. My plan is for you to select the quick-witted ones from this batch of serfs and train them into shipwrights. Yes, my lord. Then List told Costo, you are the navigation instructor of the territory. I hope you could train more sailors as soon as possible. I will continue to replenish the cargo ships in the following time. You must have enough sailors, and be sure to train more suitable captains, first officers, and other senior crew members. My lord, I am afraid it will be difficult in a short time. The serf ship from the mainland are landlubbers. They don't even dare to swim. It is very difficult for them to overcome their fear of the sea. I will let Consultant Gort give you sufficient support. What you need is to train qualified sailors for me. As you wish, my lord. When leaving Black Horse Island, List took some branches and light blue metal with him. He wanted to continue studying. Items that could be hoarded in the cabin of the sky ship were definitely not ordinary items. In particular, this kind of branch could grow into keel, which was simply unimaginable. If I study this branch thoroughly, does it mean that I can make my own sky ship? Even if I can't make a sky ship, I can continue to make sailboats for sailing on the sea. A naturally grown keel is obviously stronger than a riveted keel. In addition to his research, he often visited the glass greenhouse. Unfortunately, after 5 days, there were still no seeds germinating in the glass greenhouse. He didn't know if it was not time, or if the temperature was not right, or if the seeds were dead. He still had the patience to wait. But on the other hand, he was gradually losing patience. Barwell, haven't you made tofu yet? Liz came to the flower restaurant and asked the chef Barwell. It has been more than a week since he funded Barwell. There was still no sign of tofu. Barwell was a little flustered. He got a sponsorship of 10 gold coins and hired 10 assistants, but there was still no research results. I'm sorry, my lord, I haven't found a way to make tofu yet. As soon as possible. Although List was anxious, he was still patient and did not express it. After all, the other party was the recommended candidate for the smoke mission. Perhaps the success of tofu depended on Barwell. If he urged too much, it might hinder the emergence of tofu. After urging Barwell, Liz chatted with Chris Truth again. One reason was to take away this month's potion. Secondly, it was to see if she had any intention of becoming a great mage. If she directly broke through and became a great mage, there was no need to rush the smoke mission. Chapter 504. The amber of the sprite worm was still glistening yellow and unbelievably beautiful. However, in the eyes of Crazy Truth, it had another layer of beauty. Sir Viscount, what kind of existence do you think sprites are? I had a chat with Glanny Truth, and he explained to me the triangular relationship between spirit, matter, and magic power. Liz thought for a moment before replying. I somewhat agree with his understanding. The fusion of matter and magic power, under specific conditions, creates an individual spirit. You mean, sprites are a fusion between plants and magic power, accidentally creating a spirit, thereby bestowing life upon individuals? I believe that whether it is sprites or dragons, they all originate from this. List earnestly explained. He himself was currently breeding a fire dragon, so he had a very profound understanding of it. I don't know where spirit comes from, but I think that everything begins from a seed. Seed? Plants germinate from a seed and grow into a flower or a towering tree. Sprites are also equivalent to being born from a seed. No one has clearly explained the birth of dragons, but perhaps they were also born from a seed. Moreover, humans are also born from a seed. Crazy was surprised. How can a human be a seed? This involves human physiology. Let me use frogs as an example. Have you ever seen the eggs laid by frogs in a ditch? In fact, those eggs are a masterpiece of male and female frogs. Each egg is a seed that can become a small tadpole in the future and then grow into a frog. Chris frowned and replied after a while, I'm sorry, Lord Viscount, but I've never seen frog eggs. List smiled awkwardly. Then you have seen a hen lay an egg. In fact, an egg can also be regarded as a seed. Ordinary eggs can be said to have no spirit, no soul. It is the same as a plant's seed, but in the process of gestation, it eventually has a soul. It must have produced spirit in some way. Is it the same for humans? Crazy asked modestly. She had long discovered that the young aristocratic lord she was attached to was even more knowledgeable than a great wizard in some aspects. The same is true for humans, but humans hatch in the mother's belly, which is considered viviparous. Animals such as cows, horses, and sheep are also viviparous. Actually, regardless of whether it's an animal or a human, they're just a seed in the beginning. They're just pure matter, and their spiritual powers are obtained later on. List tried his best to be concise and comprehensive, explaining the origin of life to Chris. He then connected the dots to the elves and the dragons. But after a round of explanations, not only did Chris not understand the relationship between the seeds, elves, and dragons, but he also went around it and felt that there was really no connection. So he decisively changed the topic. You just asked me what kind of existence the elves are, right? Yes. I think elves are very magical creatures. Chrissy smiled. It was unclear if she understood Liz's dry humor. She began to explain what she knew. When I was studying the amber, I discovered that the magical structure wrapped in amber is actually a kind of magic array. The reason why the sprite worm inside is still reacting with magic power is because its magic array did not collapse. Magic array? That's right. That's why I believe that the elves are a special kind of magic array. Once you understand this magic array, you will be able to use it to achieve the same magical effects as the elves. Liz suddenly became spirited. So, do you understand? Sorry, I don't understand. The complexity of the magic array that makes up the sprite worm is beyond my imagination. I think that even archwizards might not be able to decipher such a complex magic array. The dynamic magic array that great wizards need to master is already complex enough. The magic array of the sprite worm is countless times more complex than the dynamic magic array. So, what is the use of this amber, and how can it help you? Perhaps this amber can be designed into a magical equipment that can replace the worm's stalk, but I don't know how to design it. As for the help it can give me, enlightening me about magical arrays is the greatest help it can give me. Chrissy paused, and then said solemnly, Sir Viscount, I'm going to meditate for a few days and try to attack the great wizard realm. Is there anything I can help you with? Not for the time being. Well, take the sprite worm amber first. Maybe it can give you some inspiration when attacking the great wizard realm. Thank you. Chrissy finally began to attack the great wizard realm. The development of tofu released by the smoke mission has not yet produced any results. List did not have much work to do for the time being, but he lived a fulfilling life every day, even from morning to night. He had no time to be idle. Training the dog, practicing, and feeding the small fire dragon occupied most of his time every day. The magic of the fire dragon was decreasing day by day, and the volcanic glass that could be mined on Black Horse Island was getting closer and closer to exhaustion. The mini fire dragon thrived and fell asleep immediately after eating and drinking. At the same time, it constantly excreted impurities of magic, helping List's dragon chi to grow. The cultivation of the high-level chi secret manual, Red Sun, Rising Fire, went smoothly. Every day, List would soar in the sky and constantly stimulate the chocobo Loki to fly. Loki's body was no longer developing. Obviously, the effect of the bloodline fruit had been fully released, and its abilities had been greatly improved. Judging from the magic dissipation, it was already comparable to Dosin and had become a mid-level dragon beast. However, it still only knew one kind of magic, and its growing wings were still white and could not fly. On this day, after practicing, List went to the glass greenhouse, as usual. He loosened the soil, removed the weeds, and waited for the potion seeds to germinate. However, it had been a week and a half since the seeds had been planted, and the potion seeds had not yet germinated. His hope for these seeds to survive was getting smaller and smaller. But when he studied the books of the sun, he had some new inspiration. The Sun's Child Sky Ship, Tree City, Druid, Long Legs, Sun Scepter, Potion Seed. I feel that the Sun's Child race seems to be a bit similar to the elves in the Western legends of the Earth. It is the kind of tall and handsome elves who live in the forest and are very good at archery. But thinking about the appearance of the descendant of the sun, Old Phil, it did not seem to be handsome. Then he thought again. The continent where the Sun's Child lived was probably on the other side of the Devil's Sea. But the ruins of the Sky ships sunk on Black Horse Island, which had crossed the Devil's Sea and Aquamarine Sea. This showed that the other side of the continent and the continent where he was located had been in communication a long time ago. The descendants of the sun were exiled to the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, which was also proof. Thousands of years ago, there was a human country called the Moon Empire, and there was a group of Sun's Child on the other side of the continent. One was called the Moon, and the other was called the Sun. Is there any connection? Is the Sky Ship a tool for communication between different human races on the two continents? There was too little information. There was no way to make a substantive judgment. He lowered his head and continued to weed the soil of the glass greenhouse. The potion seeds did not germinate, but all kinds of weeds were rushing to germinate. At this moment, when his small shovel dug up a weed, he suddenly found that under the loose soil, there was a potion seed being pushed up. The potion seed had split open, and a greenish-white bud stretched out, pushing it from the soil to the surface of the soil, almost breaking out of the soil. Chapter 505. The seed had just sprouted and had not yet broken through the soil. Therefore, List did not disturb it. He just released magic eyes and observed for a while, but found no signs of magic power. It seemed that this potion had degenerated into an ordinary plant with the seed. It's good that it can germinate. As long as I know what plant it is, I can find the corresponding sprite worm. Also, with the existence of the smoke mission, I believe that the probability of these plants breeding sprite worms will be very high. List, in a good mood, personally watered and fertilized. After all this was done, today's daily research was carried out. When he arrived at the blacksmith shop in Flower Town, the steward in charge of the blacksmith shop came to report, "Sir Lord, our research on the light blue metal is not going well. The forging of this metal is no less difficult than forging mithril. Perhaps only an Iron Knight can complete the forging. An Iron Knight is a blacksmith who cultivates chi. Generally, one must become an Earth Knight to obtain the title of Iron Knight. Their chi has a special nature, and the chi secret books they cultivate are also different. All their skills are used for forging. Magic metals such as mithril, orichalcum, and adamantine can only be forged by an Iron Knight. So, this light blue metal may be a magic metal? I don't know, Sir Lord. The steward replied in a low voice. The blacksmiths in our blacksmith shop burn the best charcoal with a blast bag, so that the temperature in the furnace reaches the highest, but still can't melt it, let alone deform it by beating. List nodded. He suddenly felt that he should use the fire dragon magic to build a stronger iron furnace for the blacksmith shop. Perhaps the fire dragon magic could be sufficient to forge the magic metal. This matter had to be considered in the long run. After all, the fire dragon magic was constantly decreasing and could be completely exhausted at any time. He could not stop cultivating the mini fire dragon. Just then, the mini fire dragon at the location of the heart woke up and immediately began to cry in his mind. Oh, its emotions were very simple. It just wanted to eat the fire dragon magic. Eat. It only knows how to eat all day long. List could not restrain it to stay in his heart, then left the blacksmith shop, took out a fire dragon jar, released the fire dragon magic, and absorbed it to feed it. Every time the mini fire dragon ate enough fire dragon magic, it would excrete about 1/10 of the magic impurities. Helping List's dragon do chi grow was a very special training method. List almost didn't need to practice. He could constantly become stronger. The power of the dragon's fighting spirit made the power of his fighting skills soar. He had not yet fully learned the red sun rising fire, but he felt that he could fight the Earl to a draw with just the bonus of the dragon's fighting spirit. Maybe I have to find a chance to have a good fight with the Count. If I accidentally defeat him, wouldn't the scene be wonderful? He thought to himself, trying to find joy in his bitterness. Although the growth of strength is refreshing, the priceless magic of the fire dragon is constantly consumed, which makes his heart ache. Taking a few deep breaths, he suppressed the heartache and quickly took out the light blue metal to divert his attention. The blacksmith shop could not forge it, and he himself did not study too much. The weight was the same as fine gold and had good chi conductive properties, but he did not know what properties it would show. Mithril was light as a feather. Fine gold was indestructible. Orichalcum was indestructible. These were the properties of the 3 known magic metals. Among them, the properties of fine gold and orichalcum were just a description. There was no logical relationship between spear and shield. A powerful weapon made of fine gold could easily destroy an ordinary orichalcum weapon. A powerful weapon made of orichalcum could easily block an ordinary fine gold weapon. The light blue metal is most likely a magic metal. I don't know what it is called in Sanskrit, but since there is no similar magic metal on this continent, I could just use the serpentines to name it blue iron, gold, silver, copper, and iron. Fine gold, mithril, orichalcum, and blue iron. However, List suddenly thought there are 5 layers of materials in the sun scepter. Except for the crystal-like material in the middle, which may not be metal, the other 4 may be metal or even magic metal. In addition, the materials of the communication bottle and the 13 boxes may also be magic metal. He took out a box from the gem space. This was a box for books, but the books had been taken out by List and stacked in the corner of the space. Playing with the box, which was about the size of a takeout box, it was easy to find that the metal material was special. It was very light and felt a bit like plastic, but it was definitely metal. The weight may be comparable to mithril, and the hardness is also good. Moreover, it has been preserved for hundreds of thousands of years without decaying, which shows the value of this metal. The most important thing is that it seems to be able to engrave a magic array and then use the blood of the descendants of the sun to activate it. List was not sure whether the magic array was a line on the box or something else, but he knew that the effect of this metal was very strong. With blue iron, it's time to give it another name. What should I call it? The metal seems to be gold, silver, copper, iron, aluminum, or gold, silver, copper, iron, and tin. His life before crossing over had nothing to do with metal tools, and he didn't even know how to repair water pipes. He couldn't remember whether the metal was aluminum or tin. However, tin seemed to be less used in daily life. Was it mainly used for barbecue tin foil? List was inclined to think that the metal was aluminum. After all, He had seen a lot of aluminum products, and the decoration materials were aluminum doors and windows. In addition, he also knew that there was a layer of metal paper inside the cigarette box, called aluminum foil. It showed that aluminum was very commonly used. Then this magic metal will be named after aluminum. It is mainly used for packaging, and it is light and feels like plastic. Let's just call it plastic aluminum. Why is this name so weird? Despite the weirdness, he named this metal plastic aluminum drift bottle, and plastic aluminum box. Just as Liszt was immersed in the study of blue iron and plastic aluminum. In the magic workshop, Chris Truth was trying hard to release the high-level magic water wave shield. She didn't have the talent of the siren He. She could successfully release it at once, and she tried again and failed. Finally, with continuous attempts, the released water wave shield became bigger and bigger, and soon a light blue water curtain enveloped her. Just a little bit more, and I can close the water wave shield and really fix the dynamic magic array of high-level magic. Sweat was dripping from her forehead, and even in winter, she still felt tired and hot. But she gritted her teeth and made a final effort. Little by little, the water wave shield began to close. Finally, 10 minutes after releasing the magic, the water wave shield was completely closed. In an instant, her spirit suddenly burst, and her thinking entered a new realm. In particular, the perception and mastery of the water wave shield magic rose to the level of insight, and she felt that if she released it again, it would not be so difficult. The details of the dynamic magic array had never been so clear. I did it. Chapter 506. Thanks to Bittertree, there are 4 more chapters to follow. Chris Truth was promoted to a great magician. Before the tofu was made, the good news had come. Liszt was equally excited to see Chris, who came to the castle to report the good news. He did have a problem with magicians. Not because magicians like to make explosions, but because the magicians' search for the truth made them en tableau. The group of madmen at the goat gathering dared to kill dragons. What else would they not dare to do? Liszt did not want such a group of madmen to exist in his territory. But the water magician, He, was different. She was Liszt's exclusive and the direct source of the wealth of the sea. The light magician Paris was also different. The new head of the patrol orders of chivalry, although changed to a magician, had no interest in exploring the truth. Finally, the true human great magician, the unbiased Chrissy Truth, was also different. She said that she would dedicate herself to the truth and was willing to explore the truth for a lifetime. But after all, Liszt saved her life. With such a relationship, it would curb her crazy ideas. Moreover, after getting along, Liszt also felt that Chris was just an ordinary scholar. She liked to explore the truth, but she didn't have that kind of crazy, twisted idea. Under the constant influence of Liszt, she had integrated into the life of the territory. She often took a bath, went to restaurants, went for a walk, and even liked to watch funny plays. She lived an ordinary life. Liszt was very assured of her. Congratulations, Chris. You finally got what you wanted and became a great magician. I will also fulfill my promise to build you a wizard tower on Black Horse Island. Thank you, Lord Viscount. You have been helping me make potions. This is what I should thank you for. It is my duty to serve you. Chris was not proud of making potions. She was still gentle and humble. I heard that the territory's finances are a little difficult. I am not in a hurry to build a wizard tower. I hope that Lord Viscount can solve the territory's finances first and then build a wizard tower for me later. What a thoughtful gesture. Liszt said with relief, It's all right. Recently, the glass produced in our territory has started to be sold. This is a very profitable industry. Moreover, the income from the flower brew is ready to be recovered, and the territory's finances are healthy again. I was already planning to build a new castle, and now I can help you build the wizard tower. Ah, Lord Viscount, you should build a castle first. My wizard tower can be built later. There's no need to argue. Let's repair the Magus Tower first, Liszt said in an implacable manner. Chris was so touched that her eyes lit up. Lord Viscount, you are so kind to me. I hope to serve you forever. Liszt smiled and didn't say anything. In fact, the main reason why he built the Mage Tower first was so that the architects in the territory could accumulate experience in the construction of new buildings through the Mage Tower. The territory had rubber, glass, ironwood, rocks, bricks, and a knowledge of modern architecture in List's mind. Of course, they had to build new buildings. He planned to build a named castle for himself. The style of the castle would be designed according to the neoclassical style. The most typical representative would be the White House in the United States. The traditional castles in this world were all buildings that could be used for sustainable defense. However, List is not interested in this. The castle is only meaningful in a strategic location. The enemy of a small island like Black Horse Island is only pirates. Pirates could not besiege an island castle for dozens of days, so there was no need to build a castle that could be defended for half a year. He originally wanted to design a coastal castle, and even the location had been planned. However, according to the architects, a castle soaked in seawater would be very humid. That's why he moved the location of the castle from the sea to the shore and built it in the style of the White House. At the same time, a canal would be dug to the sea so that a chi could freely enter and exit. The size of the castle may be designed as a 4-story building. If the stress test is completed, it is likely to be designed as a 5-story building. Although he only lived alone, it did not prevent him from building the castle into a synonym for luxury. There was no need to make himself feel wronged. So, before that, he would build a wizard tower first to test the new architectural style and whether it had enough strength to support each floor of the structure. Chris, you first stabilize your realm as a great mage, and then come with me to Black Horse Island in a few days. Choose a suitable location and build the wizard tower. Thank you, Viscount. Chris's face was red with excitement. I'm going to specialize in magic arrays and make magic equipment. I hope to help Viscount make Wind Pearl and Water Pearl in the future. I look forward to it. Chris Truth was sent away. List directly called out the smoke mission. The mission has changed. Sure enough, Chris was the first to become a great mage, and the smoke mission changed. Then a new mission was issued, which made List's eyes light up. Mission: Avril Mask, a burlesque actress who came to Flower Town to perform, likes the clean and tidy streets of Flower Town, which can inspire her a lot of creative inspiration. However, she is confused that she can only perform burlesque. Why not help her realize her artistic ideals? Reward: Loki's new magic. Loki is about to have a second kind of magic, which means that he has indeed become a mid-level dragon. Low-level world of Warcraft and dragons can only have one kind of magic. List was looking forward to the Chocobo's new magic, and the mission naturally had to be done immediately. Burlesque actress Avril Mask? If she doesn't want to act in burlesque, then let me help her realize her artistic ideals. If she doesn't want to act in burlesque, then let her sing opera, Peking opera, Huangmei opera. I know both the Princess Fuma and Fairy Match. It's just that Huangmei opera and Peking opera obviously don't meet the aesthetic standards of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. He thought about it and decided to call Avril Mask over and ask her personally. It just so happened that the burlesque team of North Valley City was performing in Flower Town today. With the prosperity of Flower Town, the commoners here had money in their hands, and their desire to spend gradually increased. Several burlesque teams were attracted. Master, Avril Mask has arrived in the castle's living room waiting. Got it. List went downstairs and met the artistic burlesque actress in the living room. She was a tall blonde woman with good looks. She might be a bit old, probably more than 30 years old. Avril salutes to the respected Sir Lord. Rise. List beckoned. Your surname is Mask, so does that mean that your family has always been burlesque? Yes, Sir Lord, it has always been burlesque since my grandfather. I've seen enough of burlesque. Avril couldn't help but exclaim, Ah, burlesque is fun to watch occasionally, but it's all kinds of comical appearances and childish actions. It's very boring. Avril, have you never thought of innovation? Do you think that if the audience doesn't get enough of it, then you won't get enough of it? Sir Lord, Avril does have some complaints about performing too many burlesque shows, but please rest assured, Sir Lord, Avril will go back and rearrange it to arrange more fresh burlesque shows for Sir Lord to enjoy. I don't want to watch burlesque shows. I want to see some normal performances. Avril, I have an idea that I need you to realize. Of course, you can refuse. If you do, I'll find another burlesque team. Liz said with a faint smile. Avril suddenly became nervous. Sir Lord, please give me your orders. Avril's team is the best burlesque team in North Valley City. We can definitely meet Sir Lord's needs. I hope you could perform a play. Play? It's a type of performance that focuses on dialogue and can be performed on stage with folklore, love stories, and so on. Liszt briefly explained. He actually didn't like watching plays, but to complete the smoke mission, he gave Avril some pointers. Of course, if he wanted to do it, he would work hard. He decided to buy Avril's burlesque team, change it into a drama team, and rehearse 1 or 2 classic plays to enrich the spiritual life of the territory. Chapter 507. To be precise, Liszt wanted to create a stage play in the form of a play, similar to the style of Shakespeare's Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. Of course, he did not know much about this kind of stage play. He had never seen a complete stage play, but this did not prevent him from creating a new stage play in this world. It did not need to be a sophisticated art form, nor did it need to be rich in plot content. He just needed to create the form of a stage play. When the stage play became popular, there would naturally be novelists who would create really good works. Liszt only needed to adapt 1 or 2 of the more classic night novels to create a stage play. And according to the hint of the smoke mission, Avril knew that Avril Mask had artistic cells. She just lacked inspiration. Adapting a stage play could be left to the other party. Avril, I intend to buy your burlesque team and help you create a new stage play in the form of a play. In the future, your team will move to Flower Town and perform mainly for the residents of my territory. As long as you can rehearse a classic stage play, I will recommend you to perform in a bigger city. The burlesque team was made up of freedmen, and they were freedmen who lived a difficult life. Most of them were relatives. Avril and her family had no reason to disagree with Liszt's willingness to buy them. The new stage play also deeply attracted Avril. Sir Lord, Avril is very willing to perform a stage play for you, but I don't know if it will be popular. Don't worry about whether it will be popular or not. I will buy your team and set a basic salary for you according to the standards of workshops in the territory. After that, the income from each performance will be divided. My expectation for you is to study art, not to make money. Whether a stage play could make money depended on whether this form of artistic performance could be recognized. But no matter how popular a stage play was, the team's performance time and number of times was limited. It was very difficult to make a lot of money. Liszt had a lot of assets in his hands and did not need to count on a stage play to make money. He invested in a stage play for 2 reasons. One was to complete the mission, and the other was for publicity. He was willing to do it, even if he had to pay. Avril was overjoyed when she received Liszt's confirmation. She immediately asked Liszt for advice on how to rehearse the play. I've already told you the format of the stage play. You might still be a little confused, but you have plenty of time to figure it out. I recommend to you 2 night novels, Hymn to the Loyalty of the Knight of Valsy and Sir Piero of Great Ambition. Simplify them, distill the main story, and arrange it for the stage. These 2 night novels did not have too many war scenes. They were more realistic and easy to adapt. Most importantly, the theme was healthy. The Loyal Hymn of the Valsy Knight was a story about a knight who loyally protected his lord, while the ambitious Sir Piero described a commoner who bravely followed his lord and eventually became a glorious noble knight. There is no doubt that this kind of story was loved by the commoners and appreciated by the nobles. Avril, rehearse a general story as soon as possible. I will guide you on which part of the story has problems, and you can make changes. Liszt set a limit in order to complete the task as soon as possible. I want to see him of Valsy on stage within 3 days. My lord, is 3 days too short? I don't know if I can do it well. Then let me give you a little more advice. The story of Valsy is relatively simple. Bandits came to the territory, the lord was injured, and Valsy loyally protected the lord. He defeated the bandits, and the territory was safe, so the Lord gave him a lot of rewards. You just have to intercept the main story, add a little dialogue, and do some simple imitation. Then I'll give it a try. Go! Avril's burlesque team was renamed Black Horse Island Drama Company and began to concentrate on the hymn of the Valsai Knight of Valsy. Liszt took Chris Truth to Black Horse Island to choose the location of the Mage Tower. Generally, mages would build their Mage Tower in a relatively remote location so that they could conduct their research without being disturbed. However, Chris could no longer leave the town lifestyle, so she chose to build her own Mage Tower on the edge of Port Town. Moreover, Port Town, New Castle, and the Mage Tower were distributed in a triangular shape. She did not decide on the architectural style of the Mage Tower because Liszt proposed a new architectural style: arched doors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and large pillars. It also had separate stairwells and a plumbing system with a water tower. The design was also 5-story high, circular building, with 4 rooms on each floor in addition to the stairwell. Although it was called a Mage Tower, it was actually an apartment building. Liszt had plans to continue to add such mage towers in the future to train more mages or magic scholars. He did not like the madness of mages when researching the truth, but the exploration of magic and magic arrays was a questionable research direction in the future. It was entirely possible to industrialize magic. Of course, this idea could not be realized for the time being. Chris was not even willing to train magic apprentices, let alone a large number of magic scholars. Moreover, mages were highly dangerous. To achieve the industrialization of magic, it was necessary to first achieve full control of the territory. Only with the protection of a knight's chi could the threat of magic be restrained. The requirements are clear. You need to complete the design of the Mage Tower as soon as possible. After getting the approval of Chris, you can build it immediately. Liszt ordered Jemiah rammed earth. The architect, who had a bad record, had been conscientious since coming to Black Horse Island and had not caused any more accidents. Because he came earlier, he had more experience in rubber, bricks, glass, etc., and temporarily served as the chief architect of the territory. The architects among the new serfs still did not understand the language and had to adapt to the architectural style. My lord, please rest assured that we will design the Mage Tower perfectly. Liszt turned to Chris and said, "The Mage Tower will be based on your opinion. If you have any needs, just ask." Having said that, the architectural tone of the Mage Tower was set by him, and Chris was embarrassed to overthrow it and build the Mage Tower in her mind. Moreover, Liszt's plan was really good. The Mage Tower in the neo-classical architectural style was indeed much more beautiful and practical. 3 days later, Liszt had returned to Flower Town, and the Black Horse Island Drama Troupe's rehearsal of Valsai was officially staged in the castle manor. There were not many audiences, only the town officials. The stage was very simple. The content of the play was even more simple, and the actors' performances were very poor. Valsai, which was about 15 minutes long, came to an awkward end. It was more of a farce than a play. Liszt was speechless. These comedians didn't know how to perform a stage play at all. However, when he called out the smoke mission, he smiled happily. Chapter 508. The Loyal Hymn of the Valsai Knight was a complete joke, but it still represented a new form of art. It was applauded by the town officials. Wow, what a great performance. What a respectable Valsai Knight. He should be a role model for all territorial knight. Gort said loudly. When Valsai fought with the bandits, I felt my blood boiling. If there were bandits in Flower Town, I would definitely pick up a spear and fight them. Defense Officer Nimmo vowed. In fact, he was just a trainee knight. The more he ate, the fatter he got, the harder it would be for him to ride a horse. Ms. Avril's performance deserves my applause. She is very beautiful. Having a wife like her is the source of Valsai's hard work. I like this play. Yes, play. It's not as funny as burlesque, but I really wish I was Valsai Knight. Unfortunately, the fighting scene is ugly. They don't even know how to use chi. Don't be too picky. Burlesque actors are just ordinary people. They don't have chi at all. Liszt was very surprised by the response. He thought that the play would be popular, but he didn't expect such a poor play to receive applause and praise. It could only be said that there was a lack of entertainment in this world. Music and dance have developed. The status of a pianist is comparable to that of an aristocrat. Ballroom dancing is also a necessity for aristocrats. However, more entertainment is still an urgent need for aristocrats. The same is true for civilians. Such needs can't be satisfied by old-fashioned burlesque. The birth of the play has a basis for popularity. It seems that the play will soon be popular. Should I let them explore and develop on their own, or should I give them a pointer or two? The smoke mission has been completed. List's enthusiasm for the play has suddenly dropped by 50%. I should give them a pointer or two. You can't do things anticlimactic. Avril was summoned, and List began to give pointers. He didn't know much about the play, but at least he knew what the form of modern play was, how to design the content, how to design the transition, and how to naturally immerse the performance, as well as stage props, lighting applications, and even adding chi and magic unique to this world. However, such a stage play was expensive. There was no need to complicate it until the play matured. After instructing the Black Horse Island Drama Company, he had time to care about new tasks. Mission: the number of serfs in the territory is increasing rapidly, and at the same time, the number of children who have lost their parents is also increasing rapidly. The boarding system is no longer able to sustain so many children. Children are the future of the territory. As the lord of the territory, he should establish an orphanage to provide them with a good education. Reward: 1 sprite worm. The reward was a sprite worm that List liked. The content was to build an orphanage. He did not hesitate. We do need to build an orphanage. As the children grow up, they must feel the Lord's care for them. Only then will the future orphans be loyal to me when they grow up. In actuality, many overlords would build orphanages to gather orphans in their territories. Orphans were raised well, and their loyalty was much higher than that of ordinary citizens. It was reasonable. List had to build an orphanage. He assigned the task to Gort, consulting Gort, choose a suitable site around the port town of Black Horse Island. I want to build an orphanage. This orphanage should be able to accommodate all the children in the territory and be equipped with combat teachers, serpentine teachers, and craftsman skills teachers. My lord, I will go and build an orphanage. Waiting for Gort to leave, List was still contemplating. The buildings that needed to be built in the territory were obviously not only new castles, mage towers, and orphanages, but also facilities such as the Knight Academy, Town Hall, Sentry Tower, Square, Theater, Hospital, Water Plant, Exchange, and so on. He was not an ordinary lord who allowed the city to develop in feces and urine. He not only wanted to build a modern castle, but also a modern attached city. Although there was no intention of revolution, the basic welfare of the people still needed to be paid attention to. At least the serfs of Black Horse Island should be able to live a stable life and no longer be hungry and cold. They could also be treated when they were sick. Serious illnesses may not be treatable, but minor illnesses must be treatable. However, the road needed to be taken one step at a time. At this stage, the main problem of the territory was to solve the clothing, food, and housing of the serfs. Clothing, food, and housing can be arranged by the officials. I will first plan the orphanage and the Knight Academy system, call the main officials of the territory and the Earth Knight for a plenary meeting. His attitude was to do what he said. The next day, the meeting was held in the port town office of Black Horse Island. The office had a conference hall dedicated to meetings. It was large enough to accommodate 80 or 90 people. There were 79 Earth Knights in the territory, including 12 elite Earth Knights. Today, I have called you to the meeting. The topic of the meeting is the construction of the orphanage and the Knight Academy. The purpose of the orphanage and the Knight Academy is clear to everyone. It is to train the future knight for the territory. Therefore, I hope to build a complete knight training system in the territory. The meeting did not last long. Referring to the practices of other territories, a new system was quickly developed. The Knight Academy, as the main training institution for knight, includes a full set of teaching content for training a knight. In fact, as early as Liszt had not discovered Black Horse Island, he had already secretly established the Knight Academy. This time, the teaching staff and construction specifications of the Knight Academy were all properly arranged. Liszt naturally served as the dean of the Knight Academy. The Port Town consultant Gort and the elite Earth Knight Marcus served as the deputy dean respectively. In fact, Marcus was the chief deputy dean who presided over the daily work. The Knight Academy offered loyalty lessons, chi lessons, war lessons, administration lessons, art lessons, navigation lessons, and culture lessons. These were known as the 7 Knight lessons. The Knight Academy has an orphanage, which is responsible for the adoption and teaching of orphans, the Craftsman Academy, which is responsible for the training of handicrafts, agriculture, and commerce, the Apprentice Academy, which is responsible for the early education of children, the Administration Academy, which is responsible for the training of territorial administrators, and the Elite Academy, which is responsible for the communication and management of the elite Earth Knight. At this point, the structure of the 7 courses and 5 academies of the Knight Academy on Black Horse Island has been formed. In this way, it will continue to provide talents for the territory. Among them, the Craftsman Academy and the Administration Academy are advocated by Liszt. The Craftsman Academy will be independent of the Knight Academy and will hire craftsmen from the territory to teach civilian apprentices. After learning, they will be directly assigned to work. The Administration Academy is for those knight who are not talented in cultivation. They will undergo a period of administrative training before taking up their posts to familiarize themselves with territorial affairs. In the past, the knight's method of charging and dismounting was more crude. Liszt hoped that the knight would specialize in charging and advance to a regular soldier, while the administrative officers would specialize in administration and be promoted as officials. Of course, after a regular knight retires, he would also enter the ranks of officials and receive preferential treatment. At the same time, Liszt also stipulated that important positions among officials could only be held by nobles. Important positions mainly referred to consultants and administrative officers. At this stage, the number of nobles was an urgent need. So in addition to Gort, the administrative officers of each town could only hold the title of acting. Chapter 509. Mission completed. Reward: a thornworm. When Liszt was riding the chocobo Loki, who had learned levitation, flying in mid-air, the changing smoke appeared in front of him, indicating that the mission had been completed. The orphanage had been temporarily established. The requirements for the smoke mission were not strict. Many of the contents were similar to a reminder. Once noticed and started to execute, the mission was considered completed. Another thorn worm? Liszt's eyes lit up. The day before yesterday, he had contracted the thorns worm that was bred from the last reward and moved the worm stock to the thorns garden planned in the yet-to-be-built Thorns Town. The breeding of 2 thorns worms in a row will greatly increase the output of my thorns magic potion. Very good. Patting Loki's stretched neck, Liszt shouted, "Loki, go to the thorn garden." The Garden of Thorns was the Flower Town's Garden of Thorns. Clatter! Loki responded cheerfully, flapping his wings, turning his body, and flying at a steady speed to the thorn garden next to the dairy farm. A light wind attribute magic was holding Loki's body, making it as light as a feather, so that he could rely on his wings to realize his dream of flying. Levitation was a high-level wind magic, an advanced magic of Lighten. Lighten was a magic that magicians would study when studying wind magic. It condensed wind, attribute magic to lift themselves or other objects to reduce weight. This was a very practical magic. Magicians liked to rely on Lighten to climb mountains or carry heavy objects. But Lighten was just an ordinary magic. It could not let people fly. On the other hand, its advanced levitation spell had the ability to fly. It could condense a ball of wind elemental mana and hold itself or other objects in the air as if it was floating. This magic was very difficult. It was difficult for a great magician to learn it. It was comparable to the invisibility of light magic. Loki, on the other hand, extracted the information of the magic array from his blood so that he could easily master this magic and truly fly in the blue sky. Unfortunately, levitation allowed Loki to fly, but lost the speed of running on the ground. Even if Loki flapped his wings, his speed was only equivalent to a sparrow. Moreover, levitation had a time limit. It would collapse every 15 minutes and needed to be recondensed. In 15 minutes, he could not cross the sea, let alone the sea between Black Horse Island and Flower Town. However, he could fly from Port Town to Mangrove Island. He could also fly from the Nameless Castle to the Garden of Thorns. After landing, List directly used magic eyes to look for new thorns worms. The Garden of Thorns was basically filled with magic potions that had mana retroaction. It was a little difficult to find it, but he still found it after half an hour. Carefully protect my worm stalks. Once the thorny thorn worm is born, immediately notify me. He ordered the worm protection team. The insect guards replied in a clear voice, "Yes, Sir Lord." Satisfied, List left. At this point, he had 3 lesser sprites, 29 sprite worms, as well as the 5 contracted sprite worms of a chi in her. Such wealth had already far surpassed that of an ordinary Viscount, and the potential for development was enormous. He was still a little short of the Count's wealth, but he believed that he would soon catch up. Whether it is my strength or my elves, I will soon surpass the Earl. Thinking of the exciting scene at that time, he couldn't help but let out a laugh. Hee. On the way back, he once again called out the smoke mission. "Mission, you have studied the blue iron, plastic aluminum, and the unintelligible books left behind by the sky ship, as well as the magic seeds. Why not continue to study the pile of strange wood? Perhaps they can bring you new inspiration." Reward: an astonishingly talented follower. The strange wood mentioned in the quest description was actually the pieces of wood that were salvaged from the sky ship. It would seem to have sprouted and was very hard, not inferior to the Thorn's ironwood. However, List had studied it for a few days before and did not find much information. He even planned to use it to build a castle if he had no clue. Its similar branches had already been used to build the sky ship. Now it seemed that these strange woods were hiding a secret. However, what does an astonishingly talented follower mean? You want me to recruit a new follower? Should I look for one among the new serfs? What kind of talent is that? Is it even more amazing than my talent? List was a little confused. Of course, he wanted to have a powerful follower, but the title of astonishingly talented was something he wanted to wear on his head. First complete the mission, then slowly pay attention to this follower. Back in the castle, he immediately began to study the strange wood, which was obviously a building material. The most peculiar thing about it was the shape of a naturally grown keel in the sky ship, which showed that this wood was very malleable. However, List felt that it was shaped by a kind of magic. According to the clues at hand, it could be judged that the children of the sun lived in the forest and were companions with trees. Moreover, they had very high magic attainments. Not only could they turn into bears, eagles, leopards, but they could also turn into trees. It could be seen that it was not unusual for them to master magic to make trees grow in a fixed manner. This kind of magic was even recorded in the Sun Scrolls. However, List's vocabulary was too little to understand the contents of the book. I guess that among the potion seeds I harvested, there were seeds that grew into this kind of tree. But what does the smoke mission mean by asking me to study the wood again? What secrets are waiting to be unearthed in the wood? In the castle, he soaked it in water, burned it with fire, and chopped it with a knife. Apart from proving that it reached ironwood quality, he did not find much useful information. Shaking his head, he temporarily put aside his study of the wood. Walking into the glass greenhouse, he patiently tended to the potion seeds that were germinating one after another. 1/3 of these seeds had germinated. The broad bean seed that germinated first had grown into a small seedling, and the tender leaves looked no different from an ordinary plant seedling. Just as he was loosening the soil, a seed was accidentally dug out. He was just about to bury it again when he suddenly found that the seed had germinated, but the germination had died at some point. The seed is dead? He was surprised for a moment, thought of something, and quickly dug up another place where there was a seed, but it had not germinated. A seed was dug out, and like the previous seed, it germinated but died. Several seeds were dug out in a row, and except for one that had not yet germinated, the others had germinated but died. Why would germinate and still die? Is it because it has been stored for too long and there is not enough vitality? Because the dead seeds involved many species, and there were corresponding species that thrived, it could be ruled out as an environmental problem. He thought carefully and felt that it might be that the seeds were too old, resulting in insufficient vitality. Although it was a pity that nearly 2/3 of the seeds had died, 1/3 had germinated, which more or less lessened the regret in his heart. Just then, an idea flashed in his mind. He connected the seed and the wood together. The seed germinated but died. The wood I fished out also sprouted once, but the tender bud died very quickly. Does this mean that these pieces of wood that were sawed into pieces were the seeds used to cultivate plants? Not all plants relied on seeds to germinate, and there were many plants that could germinate directly from the trunk. So, Chapter 5:10. It was already February. The sky was still snowing intermittently. The serfs of Black Horse Island and Flower Town were still working in the heavy snow. List, who was studying wood, received a message from the knight of Tulip Castle inviting him to a banquet. The theme of the banquet was to celebrate his brother Litton's breakthrough to the Earth Knight, a 14-year-old Earth Knight. It seems that Litton's birthday is in November. That is to say, he is actually only 13 years old and a few months old. List asked the butler to entertain the messenger knight and did not accept the invitation. This talent is really good, better than Levis. He was not interested in Litton's future. He asked the butler to prepare a congratulatory gift and continued his research work. With his current identity, he did not care what others thought. If he did not want to attend the banquet, even the Earl could not force him. No one in the Tulip family would and dared not blame him. Strength was the source of confidence. It seems that in another month, I will be 18 years old, and the 5 power charge moves of the burning red sun rising fire are about to be mastered. After I master them, I will challenge the Count and see how big the gap between me and the Sword Saint is. He was confident that he could rely on the powerful attributes of the Dragon Chi to fight the Earl alone. But before the fight started, it was difficult to predict the outcome of the battle. There were many factors that affected the battle between the Sky Knight, not just the battle of Chi. Wow! Chirp! Suddenly, the Thorn Sprite, Ella, chased the Corn Sprite Mickey and flew out of the castle. Mickey flew directly to List, seeking shelter, and Ella was not willing to let him go. However, after seeing List, it turned and flew out of the castle to the Garden of Thorns to vent its anger. The conditioned reflex had been formed. As long as it was angry, it would run to the Garden of Thorns to plant thorns. The first Thorn Sprite may not have much to do with Ella, but the second Thorn Sprite was definitely affected by Ella's constant magic. List was happy to see this result. Jigu, Jigu, Jigu. After Ella left, Mickey became active, flying in the glass greenhouse and touching the newly germinated potion seeds with her small hand from time to time. List was afraid that it would accidentally hurt the tender seedlings, so he waved his hand. Mickey, go play outside. Chirp. Mickey was very obedient and immediately flew outside. Not long after, his valet Thomas walked over. Master, Administrative Officer Isaiah requests to see you. Let him come here. Isaiah waited under the castle's apple tree under the caterpillar fungus. After a few steps, he arrived at the glass greenhouse. Sir, Isaiah would like to report to you the fiscal revenue of Flower Town for January. Go ahead. Our main income in January is glass sales. The nobles of Coral Island have shown great enthusiasm for glass. The glass cups blown by the glass workshop and pressed window glass are the most popular products. In just half a month, the sales profit has exceeded the revenue of flower wine. Is glass so popular? List doesn't worry much about government affairs, but he has asked about the profitable business. He remembered that the output of glass was still not high. He did not expect the profit to surpass that of liquor. Glass is very popular, but glass is not a consumable, such as liquor. With the aristocracy buying glass products in large quantities, The Coral Island market will soon be saturated. The Tulip family's caravan is ready to sell to the outer islands. This is our exclusive product, there is no competition, and it can be spread throughout the country. It can also be sold to the mainland. The future development of glass will definitely surpass liquor. Liszt was well aware of the potential of glass. What restricts us now is the output of the glass workshop and the protection of the glassmaking process. Subsequently, Isaiah introduced other financial revenues. Overall, the territory's finances in January have turned losses into profits, and Flower Town alone earned more than 300 gold coins. With the recovery of the liquor revenue, the income of the territory next month will increase greatly, and Liszt will not need to desperately subsidize it. So far, most of the funds for the construction of the territory have come from his private pocket. Of course, the territory is privately owned by him. He hopes to separate his private income from the territory's income, but it is unlikely to be so clear. After all, products such as potions, World of Warcraft, and pearls can be regarded as his private property or as the territory's specialties. Only things like shipwrecks and treasures can be regarded as his private income in a strict sense and can be included in his small treasury. With his purse bulging, Liszt's confidence returned. If there are not enough potions, he will buy them. If there are not enough World of Warcraft meat, he will buy them. If there are not enough surf food, he will buy them. If there are not enough construction materials, he will buy them. He even wrote to Tulip Castle and Longtaro Castle, asking them to pay attention to the black nightshade worm and thorned worm. Once someone sells them, he is willing to buy them at a high price. In the hands of others, the black nightshade worm and thorns worm are not very useful. In his hands, they are priceless treasures. In addition, barley worm, wheat worm, corn worm, as long as there's something to buy, he wants to buy them. The territory's food production is too low, and there is still a long way to go before it is self-sufficient, which makes Liszt feel insecure. He hopes that the territory will not only rely on various specialties to make a lot of money, but also achieve food self-sufficiency. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed. The wood that Liszt was looking forward to finally germinated, confirming his conjecture about wood breeding. Sure enough, this batch of wood is the seed. Although I do not know how to guide them to grow into the shape of a keel, but I can explore first, and one day I will figure it out. Let's call them ship planting wood. Ship planting wood can be used to grow ships. With the discovery of the secret, the smoke mission was also completed. Mission completed. Reward Emily's chi sublimation. Huh? Liszt's eyes widened. Emily's chi sublimation, what does that mean? I remember I also received a chi sublimation reward. That time I broke through from trainee knight to earth knight. Does it mean that Emily has also promoted to an earth knight? At the very most, Emily had only been cultivating chi for a year. Even with Liszt providing her with World of Warcraft meat and dragon milk, breaking through from 0 to earth knight in a year is still an inconceivable thing. Liszt exhaled, calming down. No wonder the smoke mission called her a follower with astonishing talent. This talent completely surpasses Litten. Litten is currently the first Tulip family genius to break through to Earth Knight. But he has been training for at least 5 to 6 years before becoming an Earth Knight at the age of 14, 13. Emily started training at the age of 11, and now at the age of 12, she has already become an Earth Knight. Comparing the two, one can see how terrifying Emily's talent is. So terrifying that it makes Liszt jealous. In fact, he has long discovered that Emily's chi cultivation is very easy. Half a year ago, she was already full of low-level chi and could break through at any time. However, he still found it hard to accept that she had really broken through. That shouldn't be the case. She's just a commoner. Based on my research of this world, the cultivation of battle aura is directly related to nutrition. Furthermore, it is a decisive factor. And the so-called talent is also because aristocratic bloodlines are more likely to give birth to talented children. He once summed it up. The theory of becoming stronger in this world. Aristocrats rely on drugs. Commoners rely on mutation. Although there are talented commoners who struggle for a few generations to rise to the ranks of aristocrats, a mutation like Emily is unheard of. Her background is very clear. In the Eagle Kingdom, her parents are ordinary serfs. She is not an aristocrat and has not been through generations of continuous genetic improvement. This kind of mutation is really scary. If commoners can mutate like this, the foundation of aristocratic rule should have been broken long ago. But then again, if she didn't meet me, Emily would probably just be a farming serf for the rest of her life, right? No matter how good her talent is, it will be buried if there is no opportunity to uncover it. He simply stopped thinking about Emily's talent and went straight to Emily to see what was going on. Chapter 511. Emily was still practicing in Flower Town, and Maggie, who was with her, had gone to Black Horse Island. The reason why she stayed here was that the night instructor had nothing to teach her, so he let her practice alone. She was cultivating on the grassland of the castle. She would come to the castle to eat every day. In fact, List was very good to this follower of the smoke mission. Not only did he provide her with World of Warcraft meat and dragon milk every day, but he also gave her the first mixed dragon colt born from Fire Dragon and Black Dragon, Sala. He had high expectations of her and would take the time to give her pointers when he had time. Although it was said that they were lord and follower, in fact, List played the overlapping roles of teacher, father, and lord. When he walked out of the castle and came to the meadow, he saw Emily riding Sala in the distance, sprinting and practicing Knight's Charge. She was very engrossed, shouting slogans in a childish voice while charging. List was not in a hurry to disturb her. He simply returned to the apple tree and sat in the rocking chair, waiting for her to finish her practice. The servant brought milk tea and pastries, and he took out the Fire Dragon can, ready to take out the Fire Dragon magic to feed the mini Fire Dragon. This guy eats and sleeps, and every time he wakes up, it will shout, "Oh roar," for food. By the way, he looked at the new smoke mission. The popularity of glass has made you realize that technology is the primary productive force, and the monopoly of technology is an important means of ensuring the territory's wealth. Security for important crafts needs to be put on the agenda. Please form a security team. Reward: a magic book. Form a security team and reward me with a magic book. The mission was not difficult, and the reward was not new. A security team must be formed, but how to form it needed to be carefully considered. At present, the defense forces on the territory were mainly composed of three parts: the regular orders of chivalry, composed of Earth Knight, the patrol orders of chivalry upgraded from patrols, and the insect protection teams of the various towns. There was no need to move the regular orders of chivalry. This was the foundation of the knight system, and its existence was reasonable. The patrol orders of chivalry were similar to the functions of armed police and public security. The insect protection teams were similar to the functions of militia and security organizations. These two could be reformed. Also, the territory needs to add another group of rats. List narrowed his eyes. It was impossible for all nobles to be righteous existences. There must be some shady dealings. Of course, List wouldn't take the initiative to play dirty tricks, but he had to be on guard against others using dirty tricks to deal with him. When the Flower Town was still very weak, rats arranged by other aristocrats had mixed in. Even the rats of Tulip Castle had been present. Rats had always acted as the eyes and ears of the aristocrats. At the beginning, Black Horse Island was also discovered by the rats of Tulip Castle first, but the ship was wrecked, so List took advantage of it. He comforted the little fire dragon that was crying piteously for food. He took out a thick bass paper and a quill and began to write and draw. Outline the new organization. The regular orders of chivalry will not be changed. The patrol orders of chivalry will be renamed the patrol group, and the insect protection team will be removed from the militia attribute. At first, the territory lacked people, so serfs were used as the insect protection team. Now that the territory does not lack trainee knight, it is entirely possible to form a professional insect protection team. It is best to integrate the insect protection team with the security team to form a security group. In this way, the armed forces of the territory were formed into three parts: the Orders of Chivalry, the Patrol Group, and the Security Group. These were the armed forces on the surface. In private, he would also recruit and train rats to form a Ranger Group. The Ranger Group would focus on intelligence work. In addition to collecting information inside and outside the territory, they would also have to fight against espionage. The Orders of Chivalry will be temporarily handed over to Marcus to manage. After a few years, Amelie should be able to grow up and take over. Lys looked up into the distance. Amelie was still practicing. The patrol group was handed over to Paris to manage. The security group needed to be carefully chosen. His former retainer knight Karl Hammerstein was too weak and incompetent. He was inclined to the elite Earth Knight Charles Trapp. Charles was not young anymore. After a few more orders of expansion, he would be conferred the title of Lord Knight. He should also withdraw from the front line of fighting. He was suitable to manage the security group. As for the Ranger group, there were no suitable candidates, but there was no hurry for the time being. It would take time to select suitable personnel to train into rats. He put away the thick bass paper and began to write a letter. After a letter was written, he said to his valet, "Thomas, call Xavier." "Yes, master." The retainer knight Xavier quickly ran over. "Sir." Lys looked at Xavier carefully. The former thin boy had become strong. "I have just written an appointment here. You take a boat to Black Horse Island and give it to Advisor Gort. Let him issue the appointment on your behalf." "As you wish." If he let the retainer knight deliver the letter, he would not go to Black Horse Island himself. Now, there was no castle on Black Horse Island. Every time he went there, he had to live in a wooden house. The food cooked by the chef over there was not to Lys' taste. He preferred to eat the food made by Mrs. Abby. Mrs. Abby understood him. Lys looked at Xavier's back as he left. Lys thoughtfully said, "Xavier was a little old when he practiced Qi. He did not have enough potential. It may be a bit difficult for him to become an Earth Knight. However, he is very clever. Among my retainer knight, he is the most clever. Perhaps I can let him try to manage the Ranger group?" The thought just flashed lightly. He did not continue. The formation of the Ranger group was not urgent. At this time, Emily, who was practicing, had already found Lys. According to the original rhythm, she would continue to practice and did not need to come to see him. But this time, Emily dashed over. In the winter, she was only wearing thin clothes, sweating profusely and panting. There was excitement in her eyes that could not be hidden. She tried to restrain her breath and respectfully saluted. "Sir." Lys smiled slightly. "What's the matter?" The 12-year-old girl in front of him had tan skin, but her spirit was very vigorous. Her height was becoming more and more outstanding, already more than 6 meters tall. Her originally thin and weak body had also begun to develop secondary sexual characteristics. Her chest gradually bulged, and her buttocks had a clear curve change. She had a tanned face, deep eye sockets, and a high nose bridge. She was a beauty with a bit of exotic charm. She restrained her excitement and made herself look more mature and steady. "Sir, Emily has broken through. Just now, Emily has become an Earth Knight." Although her tone was not loud, the trembling of her excited voice deeply betrayed her mood. "Is that so?" Lys immediately released magic eyes. Sure enough, the color of Emily's magic power was no longer colorless, but purple-white. This was Thunder-attributed Qi. Thunder-attributed Qi was outstanding in the aspect of explosive power. More importantly, Lys had a high-level Thunder-attributed Qi secret manual, 15-kilogram Thunder Skyshock Flash, that he had collected from Count Snade of Fragrant Celery Castle. As for ordinary Thunder-attributed Qi secret manuals, there was no shortage of them on the Coral Island. Emily's cultivation path was destined to be smooth. As for whether she could become a Sky Knight, with her talent and Lys's nurturing, it was almost a done deal. Restraining the trace of jealousy in his heart, Lys said with a smile, "Congratulations, Emily. You have become a Thunder-attributed Earth Knight." Chapter 512. A year of hard work to become an Earth Knight. Emily's talent was beyond doubt. Even the Smoke Mission was amazed. Lys already had a plan for her training. He was going to train Emily as a future Sky Knight. She had the talent to become a Sky Knight at the right age. There were no female Dragon Knight in this world, but there were still many female Sky Knights. It was just that the Grand Duchy of Sapphire had not appeared yet. Women were naturally weak in the training system, and most noble women had to bear the task of childbirth, which delayed their training. As a tool for marriage, the family's training efforts were not great. As noble as the two daughters of Sapphire Grand Duke, they also did not receive many training resources. It was also possible that they did not think about training at all. After all, training was not a simple thing. It required a lot of suffering. How could it be as easy as being a noble lady, dancing and talking about love? Emily, I am very pleased that you were able to become an Earth Knight in a year. My lord, I still need to work harder. Hard work is necessary. You are a commoner, and a woman at that. Only hard work can make you reach higher heights. You are a follower that I admire. You have a strong talent, and I can accumulate resources to train you. But if you do not have the desire to become stronger, no one can guarantee your future. Emily replied seriously. Please rest assured, my lord, I will redouble my efforts and will not let you down. Rest well for the next 2 days and stabilize your mid-level chi. I will choose a suitable lightning chi secret manual for you, and at the same time increase your nutrition standards. Thank you, my lord. The 12-year-old girl quickly left the apple tree. Looking at her slim back, Liz could not help but feel emotional. The strength of the territory is constantly growing. I am improving, the others are also improving. Achi and Chris have both become great wizards, and Emily has also become an Earth Knight. A Viscount's territory gave birth to 2 great wizards and a Sky Knight. Such strength was unprecedented. A moment later, after feeding the mini Charmander, List looked at the empty Charmander jar and began to feel sad again. Now there are still parts of Black Horse Island where volcanic glass has not yet been mined. At most, 3 more Fire Dragon jars of magic will be produced before it is completely exhausted. If the mini Fire Dragon wants to continue to devour Fire Dragon magic at that time, it will have no choice but to take out the Fire Dragon magic of the Fire Dragon Brick Factory and the Glass Workshop. However, he could not bear to let the Fire Dragon Brick Factory and the Glass Workshop stop working for the time being, even though he had already ordered the workers to experiment with the charcoal furnace, in preparation for emptying the magic of the Fire Dragon in the future. After all, in order to ride a dragon, List would throw himself into it at all costs. Then again, once the Fire Dragon was born, the magic of the Fire Dragon would not be less. 1 day later, when Gort received the letter and announced List's appointment of Charles Pitfall as the head of the security group, the smoke mission was completed. Mission completed. Reward: Aries Truth's Herbal Classification. In the afternoon, Elksun Truth returned with the latest batch of magic books, as well as 3 simple ordinary magic that he had painstakingly found. After getting the reward he wanted, he left Flower Town in a hurry, ready to go to the brothel in Coral City to have a good time. So List easily found this Aries Truth's Herbal Classification from a pile of magic books. A professional book about herbal medicine. List flipped open the book, and his interest was immediately piqued when he saw the contents. This magician named Aries Truth doesn't study magic power. Instead, he studies herbs that can cure illnesses and save lives. It seems that he is a scholar like Li Shizhen. Li Shizhen edited the Chinese medicine masterpiece, Compendium of Materia Medica, and could be called a medicine saint. The herbal classification edited by Aries Truth, although also very rich in content, is obviously not comparable to the Compendium of Materia Medica. From the records on the catalog page, there are about 120 herbs recorded with illustrations. Compared to the thousands of medicines in the Compendium of Materia Medica, it seems very shabby. In this world, this is already a great progress. After all, in a society supported by magic, the knight and magician have no motivation to study medicine. The knight and magician's body is constantly improving with magic, and it is difficult for them to get sick. As for those civilians, the noble knight and magician do not care about their lives at all. Only List, as the soul of modern people, is more concerned about the life and death of the civilians. Then he accidentally encountered a magician who also cared about the civilians and wrote this medical magic book. He called another retainer knight, Philip. You take this magic book to Advisor Gord, let him find someone to make a few copies, and arrange for this book to be placed in the Knight Academy of Craftsmen as one of the teaching textbooks. Yes, my lord. Philip took the order and left. Of course, the cover of the magic book he took with him had been scratched. Next, Liszt hid in the study again and scratched the covers of all the remaining magic books one by one, looking for possible secret techniques of qi. After confirming that all the magic books did not contain any hidden secret techniques of qi, he then dully threw himself into the new smoke mission. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. The smoke mission is really a projection of my inner world. The scene that I imagined a few days ago really appeared in the form of a mission. He looked at the ever-changing smoke serpentines with an embarrassed expression. Mission. Lee William is a mountain in your heart waiting to be surpassed. Although you are still young, your strength is no longer inferior. Work hard to cultivate the burning red sun, rising fire, and defeat Lee William. You will see the wonderful expression on his face. Reward. Old friends hovering. Although it was embarrassing, the mission's content coincided with his thoughts. In the Coral Island, the only one who could be his opponent and accept the challenge was the Count. Currently, the burning red sun, rising fire, had 5 power-charged moves: full red sun, rising sun, scorching sun, setting sun, and burning red clouds. He had yet to learn burning red clouds. The challenge could be issued at any time. But what is the meaning of this old friends hovering? Liszt was puzzled no matter how much he thought about it. He, who had transmigrated, had not made any friends in the past 2 years and was only constantly accepting followers. However, he did have some friends in his previous life. Most of these friends had come to Black Horse Island to settle down and become his followers. The only few who did not come were not old friends. Liszt did not regard them as friends at all. I don't have any old friends. If we're talking about old lovers, perhaps Dunico Hyacinth counts as one. However, I heard that she's already married and is now the wife of the Count's son. Even though Ranesa Golden Wheats isn't married yet, her naive love has long since dissipated. He did not think that these 2 women would have any entanglement with him again. Similarly, he could not think of any old friends. Forget it. I won't think about it. When I challenge the Count and defeat him, I will naturally know who my old friend is. He suddenly pulled out the sky cutter sword, his heart burning. Practice becomes stronger. I want to become the strongest on Coral Island. The waves behind push the waves before, and the waves before die on the beach. Now. Chapter 513. Spin, jump, I fly to the sky. The training of a sky knight was completely different from that of an earth knight. An earth knight couldn't live without the earth, while a sky knight yearned for the sky. With the continuous training of burning red sun, rising fire, he could already control the way to fly up to 100 meters in the air and use powerful battle energy, moves in the air. With the help of diving, falling, and other powerful forces, he could attack the enemy on the ground. One person was enough to crush an orders of chivalry. At the same time, Liszt didn't forget about multiple arrows. Using high-level battle energy to perform archery, the power was even more terrifying. His control was also greatly enhanced. Originally, with his mid-level battle energy, he could only control the triple arrow realm. Now, he could control the multiple arrow realm. He could pull 4 arrows with one hand and randomly combine the flight path of the arrows. He could still hit where he pointed without missing. Ultimate profoundness, multiple phantom arrow. He could shoot instantly without needing a long time to accumulate power. And one day, Liszt gradually discovered that because his high-level battle energy had been upgraded to high-level fire attribute dragon battle energy, the power was greatly increased, but the speed of dissipation was greatly reduced. From the moment the arrow started to hit the target, the battle energy attached to the arrow would still not completely dissipate. This allowed him to control the arrow from start to finish, and the threat was greatly enhanced. He could also ignite the battle energy at the last moment, and the power was increased by another level. The power of an ordinary Sky Knight's arrow is 1 point. With the bonus of dragon battle energy, I'm at least 3 points. Although he hadn't seen other Sky Knights shoot arrows, with his level of control, the analysis of combat power had reached a very subtle level, and there wouldn't be too much error. Bang bang. He fell from the sky, and the battle energy accumulated in his feet bounced back from the ground, and he steadily controlled his body. And he didn't step on the ground, just like a normal person jumping off the wall. He put away the swift shadow bow. Pulling out the sky cutter sword, he quickly performed the 12 ordinary moves of burning red sun, rising fire. Ordinary moves did not have a fixed routine and could be combined randomly. This kind of move was more like a kind of guidance for Do Chi, not a forceful combination of some kind of powerful move. This secret manual is somewhat inconsistent with the nature of the Do Chi in my body, especially now that I already possess the Dragon Do Chi. It is no longer a pure fire Do Chi. While practicing his moves, he could also be distracted. When I have time, I must fix this high-level Chi secret book and even compile a new high-level Chi secret book that suits me. When he was chatting with the Earl before, he had said that he would write his own high-level Chi secret book. At that time, he was suspected of bragging and had not taken any action since then. But now, he really felt that other people's Do Chi secret manuals were not perfectly compatible with his own Do Chi, and he was unable to perfectly display his fighting strength. However, he was unable to compile a new secret manual in such a short period of time. He could only continue to practice Red Sun, Rising Fire for the time being. Black Horse Island, the heavy snow had stopped. The sun split the dark clouds, and the sound of melting snow could be heard from every corner of the island. Thorntown's Thorn Garden. Liz stood in the middle of a patch of thorns, took out a jade box, and let the newly contracted thorn worm crawl onto his hand. He called out softly, "Little fellow, release the worm stalk." The thorny thorn worm opened its mouth and spat out a ray of light, which turned into a seed and landed in the center of the thorny garden. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, a brand new thorn quickly grew out. This was a thorn worm born from fast-growing magic thorns. Compared to the grayish-white ordinary thorn worm, its color was white with a touch of purple. Prettier. However, as long as it is a thorn sprout worm, the plants it affects are all thorns. Based on List's knowledge and observation of sprite worms, the scope of influence of sprite worms was bounded by plant genera, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, race, genus, species. Species is the most basic classification of species. A genus is a collection of closely related species. Alfalfa was a genus. Below were alfalfa, sky blue alfalfa, and woody alfalfa, which was a shrub. The alfalfa worms had an influence on the alfalfa of these species. But beyond the genus, sprite worms could no longer influence them. For example, barley and wheat were both members of the Triticii, but they were of different genera. Therefore, barley sprout worms could not influence wheat, and wheat sprout worms could not influence barley. Once a plant of the same species mutated to produce a magic ingredient, it was equivalent to the emergence of a new species. Fast-growing magic thorns were a new species, but they still belonged to the thorns genus. They were closely related to ordinary thorns, fast-growing magic thorns, fast-growing poisonous thorns, fast-growing thorny thorns, and fast-growing iron thorns, and were all affected by the thorn sprout worm. Similarly, corn grass also mutated into corn, oil corn, and cob corn, all of which belong to the corn genus. On Earth, they probably belong to the corn genus. But here, they belong to the corn genus defined by List. The worm stalk was settled. The thorn sprout worm was clearly a lot weaker. List put it back into the jade box and told Charles, the head of the security group, who followed him. The security team must take good care of the cordyceps in the Garden of Thorns. When spring comes, I may move Ella's cordyceps over. The Garden of Thorns will be the focus of the territory's planting area. I understand. Sir, please rest assured that the security corps will guard all the worm stalks and workshops. Charles was complacent. He used to be a wandering lord knight, but he gave up his title and followed List back to the battlefield. The changes in the territory and the power of the lord made him extremely grateful for his original decision. What's more, he was put in an important position and became one of the 3 heads of the security corps. He knew that he could not compare to Marcus in terms of connections, nor could he compare to Paris in terms of strength and beauty. It was already a great honor for him to be the head of the security corps. Only by working hard could he repay the Lord's appreciation. He gave Charles a few words of encouragement. List left the Garden of Thorns and rushed all the way to Newport town. Now that the new port was almost completed, ships could be berthed. On one side of the new port, a simple dock had been built. The sunken sky ship was being modified into a seagoing ship in the dock. There were no professional shipbuilders in the territory, so the shipbuilders could only imitate other sailboats to design the sky ship. Sir, you are welcome to inspect the progress of the dock. The manager in charge of the dock was an Earth Knight recruited from the Eagle Kingdom. He was very interested in shipbuilding. How was the progress of the Sunset? Asked List. The Sunset was the name of the new ship. At present, there were a total of 7 ships launched in the Flower Town. They were the Flower, the Thorns, the Mangrove, the Pearl, as well as the 3 newly launched ships, the Corn, the Rubber, and the Snakeblood. The names were in honor of the Corn sprite Mickey, the Rubber Worm triplets, and the mid-level sea monster, the 6-headed king sea snake. At present, the repair work on the Sunset's main body is nearly complete. We're thinking about how to modify it. Its hull is too large, and the design is very complicated, requiring at least 3 sails to provide power. Our shipbuilders only have some experience with 2-masted sailboats, so it is very difficult to design a 3-masted sailboat. Then organize a group of shipbuilders to inspect the Tulip family's 3-masted sailboat and figure out its structure. I will arrange it. Thank you, sir. After inspecting the dock, List no longer hesitated and returned to the Flower Town to rest for the night. The next day, February 17th, he put on the mithril armor that he had not worn for a long time, lined with snakeskin armor and covered with a red, black, and gold-edged cloak. He carried the swift shadow bow on his back and the sky cutter greatsword on his waist. He then put on the sapphire pendant, amplification bracelet, and stabilization ring. Riding the chocobo Loki, he called out to the Blizzard Bee Squad. Following behind him were the Retainer Knight and the accompanying valet. Treading on the snow that had not melted, he headed towards the Tulip Castle. The 5 power-charged moves of the rising red sun flame have been successfully practiced, and the high-level fire tribute Dragon Chi is also abundant. Chapter 514. I thought you were so busy on Black Horse Island that you didn't even have time to attend the banquet to celebrate Litton's promotion. In the study, the Count was quite surprised by List's visit. At the same time, he expressed his dissatisfaction that List did not come to the banquet to celebrate Litton's promotion to Earth Knight. Of course, it was just dissatisfaction. List smiled. I've been really busy during this time. The development of Black Horse Island is inseparable from me, but now that it's on track, I have more free time. I wanted to come to Tulip Castle to enjoy lunch, and at the same time, I would like to ask Father for advice on cultivation. Ask me. The Count's heart suddenly thumped, and a bad picture emerged in his mind. You have always been very assertive on the path of cultivation. Do you really need me to give you any advice? Yes, you are a Sky Knight at the Sword Saint level, and I'm just an ordinary Sky Knight. With your guidance, I can avoid some detours and find the most correct path to practice. It's right for you to have such a cautious idea. I have always believed in the truth that I can see further by standing on the shoulders of giants. Well, it's a very interesting sentence. On the road of Qi cultivation, the wisdom of our predecessors is undoubtedly as huge as a giant. We practice the Qi secrets left by our predecessors and continue the Qi levels that our predecessors have walked. If we can't conquer this giant and climb on the shoulders of giants, then it's a failure. The Count frowned, and a bad feeling came to his heart again. This guy clearly came to ask me for advice. Why is he talking about these principles? List also quickly realized that today was not a chat. He decisively went straight to the point. Father, you are as tall as a giant to me, and you are also the object that I hope to surpass. And today, I have a little success in practicing the red sun rising fire, so I want to ask Father for advice on actual combat. Ask for advice on actual combat? The Count was stunned, then nodded with a very complicated expression. I thought you really wanted to ask me for advice, but you just wanted to challenge me. When you were an elite Earth Knight, you challenged me once. It seems that after being promoted to a Sky Knight, your mentality has inflated. List's expression was calm. I am not inflated. I am just eager to know my true strength. Very well. I also want to see clearly how much strength my most outstanding son has that I don't know. The Earl suddenly got up and left the desk. You go to the manor and wait for me. I'm going to change my equipment. Yes, Father. List turned and left and went to the manor to wait patiently. Back in the castle, William summoned his valet and said, Bring me my battle gear. I want to change. When the servant came back with a lot of equipment, Madame Marie also came over. My dear, are you going out today? You even took out your armor? Sword fight. Madame Marie was surprised. His purpose today is to ask you for advice. Sword fight? Madame Marie was surprised. The purpose of his visit today is to ask you for advice on a sword fight. Yes. Madame Marie didn't know much about sword fights between Sky Knights. She was a typical noble lady of a manor, good at socializing and housekeeping, but she didn't know anything about cultivation. Let Lytton watch from the side. He is already an Earth Knight. Watching a powerful knight fight will certainly help his cultivation. A fight between a Sky Knight doesn't give much inspiration to an Earth Knight. Madam, what Lytton needs is a solid foundation, not combat experience. Even if Levis didn't go to Golden Island with Rolia and stood here, I still wouldn't let him watch the fight. An Earth Knight and a Sky Knight are two different realms. All right, I am too worried. I just hope that Lytton can quickly grow up. My dear, you know that his talent isn't any worse than anyone else's. I understand, don't worry. The Earl comforted Madame Marie and continued to change his equipment. Madame Marie helped him tidy up his armor and accompanied him out of the castle. At this time, List was already riding on the chocobo Loki's back. When he saw William leave, he quickly said, Father, the rocky beach to the north is quiet and uninhabited. It's more suitable for combat. I'll go first. With that said, he rode Loki away and disappeared into the horizon in just a few blinks of an eye. Madame Marie looked at the direction where List disappeared and sighed. Is there really a son of glory in this world? A bloodline fruit created Dosin, and another bloodline fruit created Loki. His luck is unbelievable. For so many years, you have been looking for an intermediate world of Warcraft, but you never found one. The Earl didn't want to answer. He just let his squire bring his mount, a horse that had the bloodline of a World of Warcraft drywood leopard. He mounted the horse and chased after List. Rocky Beach. With his hands behind his back, List looked at the surging waves on the beach and quietly adjusted his body's condition. Next would be his first sword fight since becoming a Sky Knight, and also the highest quality battle. The Earl quickly arrived. No squires, no servants, no onlookers. On Rocky Beach, there were only two Sky Knights on Coral Island, looking at each other. Father, List challenges you. He slowly pulled out the Sky Cutter greatsword, his chi surging. The Earl didn't waste any time and pulled out his long sword, two glistening yellow and green gems. Begin. This sword was called Tenacious Sword, derived from the two yellow gems with tenacity and the emerald with endurance attribute. Before his voice fell, boom, with a whistling sound, List had already operated his chi, turned into a stream of light, and rushed towards the Earl. The basic move of Red Sun Rising Fire also had amazing attack power. In an instant, the Sky Cutter greatsword arrived in front of the Earl. The Earl's eyes flickered slightly. He raised the tenacious sword and accurately hit the Sky Cutter greatsword. Two chi bloomed on the blades of both sides, one red and one blue, reflecting each other. Before the chi could distinguish which was stronger, the blades separated from each other, and the two wielding the swords each took a step back. Then List once again slashed with his sword, and the Earl also brandished his sword to meet the attack. Clang! Clang! The fiery red fire chi and the bluish-white water chi, accompanied by the constant probing attacks, gradually twisted together and consumed each other. List was still probing and attacking. His fighting style could be described as violent, unforgiving when he gained the upper hand. After discovering that the Earl's resistance was not as strong as he had imagined, he could not bear it anymore and increased the output of chi, ready to switch from probing attacks to crazy attacks. The Earl, on the other hand, frowned in the midst of his probing attacks. He had gone on countless expeditions and had also fought countless sword fights with strong and weak opponents. Some opponents were good at entanglement, while others focused on eruption. However, in front of his water chi, their chi was far less durable and violent than List's fire chi. What was more frightening was that for every trace of chi of List, he needed to release even more chi to eliminate it. Chapter 5:15. The Count was horrified. List felt good. He went all out, giving the Count almost no time to react. High-level fire attribute Dragon Battle Chi was attached to the Sky Cutter Greatsword, wantonly crisscrossing. Relying on the slow dissipation of the Battle Chi, almost all the dozens of meters around the body were filled with Battle Chi. Red Sun full wheel. With a loud roar in his heart, the Sky Cutter Greatsword danced like a red sun. The dense Battle Chi continued to squeeze, igniting all the surrounding fire attribute Battle Chi in the next 1/10 of a second. Like an explosion, a large sea of fire was instantly ignited, crushing toward the Count. The blue and white water attribute Battle Chi was squeezed less than a few meters in front of the Count. In the face of such a burning flame, his Battle Chi simply could not trigger a qualitative change, turning into seawater. It could only continue to evaporate in the flame. If he wanted to replenish it, he had to face List's nonstop attack. He was suppressed to the point where he could only passively defend. He wanted to fight back, but he could not break through the pervasive flame. This caused the rage in his heart to accumulate even more. He felt as if he wasn't receiving List's guidance at all, and he was being suppressed by List instead. He felt as if he was locked in a steamer, and he was in an extremely sorry state. However, after all, he had experienced countless sword battles. He was not in a sorry state. His Battle Chi consumption couldn't keep up, so he focused on defense and patiently looked for opportunities. Finally, in the midst of List's overwhelming attack, he found a flaw and immediately broke out with a big attack. The water attribute Battle Chi accompanied the enduring sword, deflecting the attack of the Sky Cutter Greatsword. Then his Battle Chi gushed out, and his body flew hundreds of meters into the air. Leaving the flame area, it was really like a bird flying in the open sea and sky. The whistling cold wind blew on his face, making his red face that was almost steamed by the flame quickly cool down. The comfortable feeling stimulated him to roar. "List, my son, Sky Knight, the real battle has just begun." But before he could get into position, he saw 4 fiery red arrow trajectories coming straight at him. One at the front, one at the back, one on the left, one on the right, sealing off the space for him to maneuver and dodge. After all, he was high up in the sky and had nowhere to borrow strength from, making it difficult for him to dodge the arrows. Archery doesn't have much lethality against a Sky Knight. The Count was not in a hurry. He drew a circle with the enduring sword, ready to block. However, the next moment, when the enduring sword touched the arrow suddenly exploded. The power wasn't that great, but it was quite unexpected. He had never seen an arrow fired from such a long distance, and it even had Do Chi attached. Therefore, the Count was careless and was hit by the explosion of the fire-attributed Chi at close range. The chaotic impact of the Chi wave almost knocked him down from the air. Even though he managed to stabilize himself in time, a strand of brownish-yellow hair on his forehead was still burnt by the flames. "My hair!" The Count's face, which had just cooled down, turned red again at a speed visible to the naked eye. Unfortunately, before he could get angry, List, who had quickly put away his swift shadow bow, leaped into the air with his dough, chi gushing out. He turned into a red rocket and went straight to him. He waved the sky cutter sword in the air and suddenly bombarded the Count with a move, Rising Sun. In the next second, the Count screamed and flew toward the distant sea in a free-fall trajectory. List adjusted his figure and followed the Count, not ready to give the Count any chance to fight back. He had entered the state of the sword battle and was fully immersed in the battle. It was clear that the opponent was a powerful sword saint, and only by going all out could he defeat the opponent. Even if it was an actual combat exercise between father and son, he shouldn't go easy in a sword battle. The strong always go all out in a battle. Falling Sun, the rising sun burning fire, was released again, and List, who caught up with the Count, made another fierce move. Even though the Count had adjusted his posture while flying and met the attack with his strongest combat power, he was still bombarded by this move. The explosive fire-attributed chi was not something that his water-attributed chi could resist at all. There was a fundamental gap between them. Why is this happening? Puzzled thoughts flashed in his mind, and the Count fell to the ground in a crash. He didn't understand why he flew into the sky and began to fight as a Sky Knight, but he still couldn't stop List's attack. His water-attributed chi was known for its toughness, but it was vulnerable in front of the fire-attributed chi. I am a sword saint. It shouldn't be. My chi should be stronger. Bang! The moment he was about to land, the Count turned his body in time and stepped on the rocks of the rocky beach, crushing the rocks. With the counterforce and the gushing chi, he rose again. He narrowly avoided List, who accelerated his attack with the help of the fall. Boom! The fire-attributed chi exploded on the ground, and the surrounding rocks of the beach, for dozens of meters, all exploded. List didn't stop at all. He swung the sky cutter sword again and again, and the chi spewed out tens of meters away from the blade. Burning red clouds. The chi turned into flames, just grabbed the back of the Count, who was rising into the air, and instantly broke up the Count's water-attributed chi, so that the Count could no longer continue to fly. Scorching sun stab, his figure rushed forward, and with the help of the sky cutter sword, he rushed to the front of the Count. The flame turned into a drill, easily destroying the Count's temporarily released blue and white chi. From beginning to end, the Count's chi couldn't change qualitatively and trigger a natural phenomenon. Every time the chi collided, it would be crushed by the fire-attributed chi. Moreover, he had to release several times the amount of do chi in order to resist the corrosion of the fire attribute do chi that seemed slow but was actually fast. This was a situation that had never happened in his countless sword battles. Boom! The chi was blown away again. The Count just wanted to release it again, but it was too late. The sky cutter sword pierced out of the flames and went straight to his neck. Just one more inch, and it would pierce the skin. He even felt the tingling and burning sensation on his neck, which was the pressure formed by the sword's tip squeezing the air. He even vaguely felt the threat of death. It was a deep sense of powerlessness. In his sword-fighting career, he had almost never experienced this feeling. The sword fight always ended with him defeating his opponent. Even if he failed several times, he could easily escape. But this time, it was a crushing defeat. He had almost no power to fight back. From beginning to end, he was passively beaten until his chi collapsed. The long sword was on his body. There was nothing else he could do. At the critical moment, the sky cutter sword stopped and slowly retracted. The flames that filled the sky quickly dissipated, revealing a handsome face gasping for breath. "Father, you were careless." List suppressed his rapid breathing and broke the silence of the scene with a calm tone. His eyes were as bright as stars, and his face had regained its calm. In fact, he was ecstatic. He thought it would be a bitter battle, but who would have thought that it would be a one-sided crushing? The Ocean Wave Sword Sage, whose fighting strength ranked in the top 10 in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, was so easily defeated by him that he couldn't even escape. After a burst of fighting, the battle was over. He had won without any sloppiness. He had become the #1 expert of Coral Island. His mood at this moment could not be described in words. It could only be said that he was overjoyed. If he had not seen the complex expression on the face of the Count, he would have laughed out loud. Now he had to put away the sky cutter sword, lower his head, and try to suppress his laughter. He secretly looked at the Count out of the corner of his eye. On the Count's face, anger, annoyance, fear, gratification, excitement, confusion, and other expressions alternated, constantly twisting and folding, forming a tangled, bashful, and awkward expression. It flickered for a while. Chapter 516. Was the Count careless? No, but at this time, the father and son did not need to exchange glances. They still had a tacit understanding and dealt with it according to the Count's carelessness. Liszt did not say that he won, so the Count did not have to admit that he lost. The two found their mounts, led their mounts, and slowly walked. The Count gradually calmed his mood. Whether he could accept reality or not, for the time being, was not a question. The one who defeated him was none other than his son, which meant that he could not always be upset. A father had the thought of wanting his son to become a dragon, hoping that his descendants would be stronger than him. Liszt did it. He had no reason to be depressed, but it was also not easy to make him happy at once. After all, he was used to his identity as Coral Island's #1 expert. Apart from Grand Dukes who might succeed in riding dragons, Lee William was not afraid of others, even if it was a sacred swordsman of perfection. Inconceivably, in front of Liszt, he did not run away. I can no longer evaluate your growth. I am 46 years old, in the prime of my life. You are 18 years old, not yet a birthday. I remember you said before that your goal is to ride dragons. Every young man has the dream of riding dragons. Only in middle age will they give up unrealistic fantasies. As for you, the Count looked at the elegant Liszt. He wanted to say something, but he did not continue. He felt that Liszt had the hope of riding dragons. However, every sacred swordsman of perfection Sky Knight had the hope of riding dragons. But where would he find a suitable dragon? Therefore, there was no need to say this. He lowered his head and raised his eyes, wanting to see the hair that had been burnt by the fire. He could not see it clearly, nor did he have a mirror, so he could only touch it with his hand. It did not feel very good to the touch, especially at the hairline on his forehead, which seemed to be a little bit missing. This made his originally calm mood abruptly worsen, and his tone became particularly stern. Liszt, do you know what people fear the most when they reach middle age? What? Liszt asked absent-mindedly. It's the hairline. Even someone as strong as the Grand Duke, who consumes countless nourishing ingredients every day to maintain his body, still can't stop his hairline from constantly receding. As your father, I don't have a handsome face. My hairline is the only thing I can rely on. Liszt was confused. Huh, but you heard it. Father, your hairline does not give people the feeling that it is unattainable. My Dochi flame only burned off a strand of your hair. It did not damage your hairline. Really? Yes. All right, I forgive you. The Earl breathed a sigh of relief and then asked, I'm very curious. We both have high-level combat chi, but why can't my sword's saint-level combat chi stop your ordinary high-level combat chi? It's even showing signs of collapsing. Maybe it's because I'm gifted. Liszt focused his attention and answered helplessly. He did not expect that the battle would be so one-sided. The suppressive effect of the dragon's Do-Chi on ordinary Do-Chi was so terrifying. Otherwise, he would have restrained himself to reduce the possibility of exposure. He was not ready to tell his family the secret of the little fire dragon. When it came to riding a dragon, he could not be too careful. Once he was exposed, it was easy to imagine that the Grand Duke would never let him go. He would do everything in his power to snatch the little fire dragon away. The allure of a dragon, especially a young dragon, could never be overestimated. After all, it was the easiest for a young dragon to establish a relationship with a knight and become a dragon knight. The dragon knight was the pinnacle of power in the world. Who could not be addicted to it? Fortunately, his opponent was the Earl, his own father. Even if there were some secrets, he could easily dodge it. The nature of my Do-Chi is relatively special. It is very corrosive, and my fighting style is strong and explosive. As long as I seize the initiative, it will be an endless wave of attacks." This reason was a bit lame, but the Earl did not go into it. First, he was not in a good mood, and second, he did not want to get to the bottom of it with his son. In particular, List's strength could already crush him. In this world where the strong were king, even if List was only his son, he still had to give him a great deal of respect. "You haven't entered the level of Sword Saint yet, right?" "Not yet. When can you advance?" List deliberated. "It's hard to say. Try to advance within a year." Hearing this, the Earl paused, directly mounted his horse, threw down the words, "I'm proud of you." Then he rode his leopard horse and galloped towards Tulip Castle. The Earl galloped away. List rode low-key, slowly walking along the quiet path. His eyes were locked on the void in front of him. It was a cloud of smoke that others could not see. As early as after defeating the Earl, he had called out the smoke mission, wanting to know who his old friend was. Mission completed. Reward: invisible dragons hovering. Invisible dragon. It's actually the invisible dragon. When he first saw the invisible dragon, he was both surprised and delighted. The invisible dragon was a treasure giver. The space gem was of great help to him. But what puzzled him was, why is the invisible dragon my old friend? When did I become friends with it? When the invisible dragon visited the flower town and ate 2 cows, it roared and left. List hid in the tunnel the whole time, not daring to show his face. With this kind of behavior, you can't call a friend at all. However, after thinking for a moment, he recalled why the smoke mission called the invisible dragon his old friend. It was because of the night novel Earth Ranger Griff's Travels, which was the original source of information about the invisible dragon. The author of the novel, Griff, used smoke grass and beef to attract the invisible dragon. He also said that the space gem was the proof of the friendship between him and the invisible dragon. He now knew the meaning of old friend. List carefully looked at the smoke serpentines in front of him. Mission: the invisible dragon is hovering outside its territory. It doesn't remember where it was. Bathe in the intoxicating fragrance and eat the delicious beef. Perhaps it will descend again the moment you ignite the smoke grass. Reward: the invisible dragon's gift. I forgot the flower town's coordinates. This is a great opportunity. I can make a good arrangement and obtain the greatest harvest. I believe that this invisible dragon's gift will be even more abundant than the last time. The last time, apart from a space gem, the invisible dragon's gift also included 4 dragon cows, as well as several other affected cows. This time, List planned to make a careful arrangement and maximize the benefits brought by the invisible dragon. He had seen the majesty of the dragon and understood that he couldn't keep the invisible dragon for the time being. He could only fish for as many benefits as possible. According to the notes I made on dragons, dragons need to be excited to infect other species to release their bloodline. Probably, the production of gems also needs to be excited. When the invisible dragon visits again, I need to make it feel at home and thoroughly excited. The more excited the invisible dragon was, the more space gems it would leave behind, and the stronger the influence of its bloodline would be. List licked his lips. Chapter 517. After returning to the castle, no one mentioned the outcome of the sword fight. Since the 2 parties involved did not mention it, the others only thought that the father and son were exchanging pointers. Since it was a spar, there was no question of victory or defeat. However, the Count was still a bit embarrassed, especially when Madame Marie asked, "Dear, why is the hair in front of your forehead missing? Does it look like it was burned?" Fortunately, List quick-wittedly helped the Count out. "I'm sorry, Madame Marie. When Father was instructing me, I accidentally used too much force, causing my chi to burst and burning a strand of Father's hair. Fortunately, it did not affect his hairline. It really did not affect it." Madame Marie smiled. "You are all Sky Knights with powerful attack power. You must pay attention to safety when practicing." List nodded. "Please rest assured. Of course we will be careful." "Madam, you don't have to worry." The Count echoed, and then immediately change the subject. Today's schedule seems to be to accompany Mother to watch a farce. Why didn't you go? If you don't want to watch a farce, then invite Mother over and have a chat with List. Mother didn't let me accompany her. She went to the flower market today to pick out potted plants. Recently, she gave away a batch of potted plants as gifts and needed to replenish them. She really treats her potted plants as treasures. Apart from the 2 sprite worms List obtained, no other potted plants have given birth to sprite worms. Right? Do the potted plants she gave to Lytton look like they're going to breed sprite worms? The Count said helplessly. Madame Penelope was obsessed with her potted plants ever since the 2 potted plants gave birth to the Black Nightshade sprite worm and the fig sprite worm, believing that the potted plants she took care were the best gifts for breeding sprite worms. She only gave potted plants as gifts. This made many people dissatisfied, believing that the old madam was actually reluctant to spend money. On her birthday, people gave expensive gifts. When it was the turn of others to receive gifts, she only gave potted plants worth a few copper coins or at most a few silver coins. List smiled at the side. In any case, he had made a profit. The 3 chatted for a while. The atmosphere was not warm, but it was not awkward either. However, they did not have much in common with each other. The Count did not want to talk about cultivation, and List did not want to talk about his personal life. Seeing that it was already 10 o'clock in the morning, he said, "Father, Madame Marie, I am going out to Coral City to buy a batch of living supplies. Go, don't be late for lunch." All right, buying daily necessities was just an excuse. He didn't need to prepare his own necessities. He was preparing for the visit of the invisible dragon again. From now on, he had to make preparations to squeeze the invisible dragon dry and obtain the greatest benefits. The invisible dragon loves to smell the smoke grass. I need to prepare a smoke grass paradise. It will be best if it is densely packed with smoke grass hay. When ignited at the same time, it will form a grand fireworks stage. I believe the invisible dragon will be intoxicated in the fragrance of the smoke grass and be unable to extricate itself. Smoke grass was a specialty of his territory, so he didn't need to worry too much about it. At most, he would use different methods to extract the taste of the smoke grass, burning the hay to form smoke, mashing the tender grass juice for spraying, and then secretly making some smoke grass paste for spreading on food. The food must be beef. I need to prepare several fresh beef cows, adult cows, and calves. Cooked beef must also be braised, pan-fried, deep-fried, boiled, and all kinds of seasonings must be added. The invisible dragon must enjoy the charm of a cow banquet. The territory didn't raise beef cows, so he had to buy them from Coral Island's livestock market. He also had to hire a beef chef to help in the territory. List wrapped his body in his cloak. After passing through the smelly streets in a low-key manner, he appeared in the flower caravan's office in Coral City. Naturally, he didn't need to buy beef himself. The caravan captain, Harpagon, was listening to his orders, various breeds of cattle, as well as a beef chef. Harpagon, this is the most important thing you need to do in the next 3 days. I understand, Sir Lord. 3 days was the preparation time that List had set. If the time was too short, he wouldn't be able to make sufficient preparations. If the time was too long, he was afraid that the invisible dragon would slip away or visit ahead of time. If it really did visit ahead of time without proper preparations, not only would it cause heavy losses to the territory, but it would also expose the secret of the invisible dragon. At that time, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Therefore, he only gave himself 3 days to make full preparations. Harpagon, there's one more thing. Hire a group of chefs who can cook lamb, horse, pork, chicken, and all other meat dishes. Although the invisible dragon liked to eat beef, it didn't mean that it didn't like other meats. List didn't think that the invisible dragon could survive by eating beef alone. According to the dragon-raising handbook he obtained from the Bull Marquis desk, dragons were carnivores. Different dragons liked to eat different foods. Some dragons even ate stones or wood. They seemed to have a picky taste, but most of them liked to eat meat. The invisible dragon was obviously a carnivore. Beef was recorded in the Earth Ranger Griff's travels, but there was no guarantee that the invisible dragon didn't eat other meats. Therefore, List had to prepare rich meat to fill the invisible dragon's stomach and conquer its taste buds. Not only that, he also had Harpagon collect all kinds of drinks from the market to serve as a meal drink for the invisible dragon to enjoy. If the invisible dragon got drunk, wouldn't it be? List felt excited just thinking about it. After lunch at Tulip Castle, List hurriedly returned to Flower Town and dispatched a large number of smoked grass hay from the warehouse to Black Horse Island. He decided to place the invisible dragon's dining table in the wilderness of Black Horse Island. There were many places on Black Horse Island where serfs were not active, which was very suitable for contact with the invisible dragon. At the same time, he also had the serfs pull up a large number of new and tender smoke grass, especially the high-quality smoke grass around the cordyceps. The serfs, wearing thick masks, mashed the tender leaves into juice, sealed them in glass bottles, and transported them to Black Horse Island. As for List himself, he selected suitable livestock overnight, ready to accept the invisible dragon's magic infection and obtain the dragon's blood. The magic of the blood released by the invisible dragon should be very limited. Otherwise, the world would be full of dragon-type creatures, so the number of infected spots would be limited. He pondered. First of all, there were already dragon-type horses, and the black blood horse race was slowly growing, so there was no need to occupy any spots. Second, there were already dragon-type cows, but they were few in number. There were only 4 of them, and they were close relatives, which was not conducive to future reproduction. He could bring 2 or 3 pregnant cows to add new dragon-type calves. Next, poultry such as chickens, ducks, and geese were relatively small, and their demand for magic was probably very small. He could choose to bring a batch of female cows together with their hatched eggs. Then, pork would be the main source of meat in the territory. It was obviously necessary to have a group of dragon-type pigs, so he could bring a few pregnant sows. Again, he could choose a batch of mallard eggs and bring them over. It would be wonderful if a dragon-type mallard was created. Basically, it can be guessed that creatures in the embryonic stage are most likely to be infected by the dragon's blood. So do I need to bring a batch of adult individuals? He then thought of Dosin and the 8 small ones. If he created them into an intermediate dragon species, World of Warcraft, their power would definitely increase greatly. However, the last time the invisible dragon visited, the adult cows did not evolve into dragon-type cows. It could be seen that the bloodline of the adult creatures had solidified and was difficult to infect. Stupid Woman was already in reproductive isolation and could no longer give birth, basically cutting off the hope of Dosin's descendants and becoming a dragon. Moreover, to turn Trembling Woods into a dragon beast, I am afraid that it will take a lot of blood magic. I have so many species that I need to infect, and I really can't give much magic to Trembling Woods. Forget it, Trembling Woods and the others have achieved extraordinary achievements. This time, I will not consider the Blizzard Beast. Chapter 518. List did not add any new infected species to the list. He was a little worried that if the invisible dragon was not as excited as he thought, the blood infection magic released might not be enough to infect too many species. Besides, I already have a little fire dragon. When this guy is born, it should not be difficult to create some dragon species. There is no need to rush. The invisible dragon was a dragon that was difficult to catch. If he could squeeze it dry, of course he would. If he really could not squeeze it dry, it was not a big deal. With a mini fire dragon in his heart, he had enough confidence. At this point, he had completed the list of infected species. 3 pregnant cows, 2 pregnant sows, 10 green-headed duck eggs waiting to hatch, an old hen laying eggs and 5 eggs, a hen laying eggs and 5 duck eggs, and 1 laying eggs. Well, there were no geese in the territory for the time being. The chickens and ducks must be the healthiest chickens and ducks, and their eggs must be fertilized. Early the next morning, before shipping, List repeated the selection criteria again. Sir, you can rest assured that this batch of eggs and duck eggs are the best chickens and ducks in the process of hatching. We have put them in cages with their nests and brought them here. Protect the cows and fat pigs. Don't let them get hurt. Understood. The cargo ship pulled all the prepared supplies and sped towards Black Horse Island, finally arriving before dark. List had arrived at Black Horse Island ahead of time on the flowers. The picnic site he chose for the invisible dragon was located north of Tea Tree Town, the northernmost point of Black Horse Island. It was an extension of the ice grass hill. Originally, there were some shrubs scattered here and there, but since the volcanic glass mining, all the shrubs were dug up and burned as firewood. A few weeds had begun to emerge in the reclaimed wasteland, and the temperature hovered around 0 degrees. The snow had just melted, causing the area to be very muddy. However, Gort, who had been notified last night, had already brought the serfs to the construction site. They mainly came to dig tunnels. Liz sent a ship overnight to deliver the drawings. They needed to dig a cross-shaped tunnel with a circular tunnel in the middle. The cross-shaped and circular tunnels divided the picnic site into 4 regions: northwest, southwest, southeast, and northeast. At the same time, List also requested to place 8 smoking points above the circular tunnel. He could hide in the circular tunnel and light all the smoking points one by one to release the smell of the smoking grass. At the same time, in the middle of the cross-shaped tunnel was the location of the dining table. All the food and drinks will be placed here. List would personally sprinkle the juices of the smoked grass around the dining table. There were also a few large pots where the smoked grass would be continuously cooked. Right under the dining table, there was an entrance to the underground tunnel, which allowed List to hide in it freely. He could then follow the cross-shaped tunnel to the circular tunnel. Wooden houses would be built in the 4 areas of the picnic site, housing sows, cows, chickens, and ducks, and green-headed ducks respectively. Equally distribute the bloodline infection magic power released by the invisible dragon when it was excited. Sir, may I know why you built these tunnels and sent these things? Blair, who was in charge of arranging for the chef to cook the food, asked curiously. Liz casually dismissed him. I need to practice high-grade chi here. This is a special practice method. You don't need to ask too much. Also, pay attention to confidentiality, understand? Blair's spirit was immediately shaken. Understood, sir. He didn't know what high-grade chi looked like, let alone how to practice it. He believed whatever Liz said. Everyone, including the others, believed that what Liz said was the reason. The practice method of Sky Night was, of course, different from that of an ordinary night. Even if there were some doubts, no one dared to question List. Thus, including the previous half a day of busyness, in 3.5 days, the picnic site had completely changed. On the ground in the center, which was paved with dry straws, delicious food was arranged in order, and jars of wine decorated them. There were also living old cows, bulls, cows, calves, and calves that had just been born. In addition, there were a large number of sealed glass bottles filled with smoked grass juice. The morning sun shone on the earth. List came to the picnic site alone. Everyone, including his mount, was at least a few kilometers away from this place. He flew high into the sky and hurried on his way, checking the infected pigs, cows, chickens, ducks, and eggs in the 4 areas in turn to ensure that everything was normal. Then he used the last bit of fire dragon magic power to feed the mini fire dragon. After ensuring that it would not sense the invisible dragon's magic power, it would mess around. He couldn't predict what would happen when dragons meet each other and could only avoid it as much as possible. Almost there. When I ignite the smoke grass around me, the smoke mission will be completed and the invisible dragon will soon arrive. There is not much time left for me. Liz took a deep breath. He put on his mask, released magic eyes, and carefully observed the surrounding sky to ensure that the invisible dragon had not yet appeared. Then he grabbed the sealed glass bottles, quickly opened them, and sprinkled the juice around the table. He then opened the mixed smoked grass sauce and smeared it on the cows. Then, he put the young smoked grass into the pot of boiling water. The disgusting smell spread. Even though he was wearing a mask, Liz's stomach acid welled up, and he almost vomited. The cows that were smeared with the sauce foamed at the mouth, swayed, and almost fainted. Resisting the urge to vomit, he poured out the last bottle of smoked grass juice, took out a match, and ignited a large bundle of smoked grass on the table. Looking up at the sky, he saw that the invisible dragon had not yet arrived. Lys did not dare to stay. He quickly drilled into the tunnel next to him, picked up the prepared stones, and blocked the tunnel. Then, he ran along the tunnel towards the circular tunnel. Following the circular tunnel, he lit the smoked grass above one by one. All these actions were done in 5 minutes. Even with his physical fitness as a Sky Knight, he was sweating all over after running around. Finally, he hid in a bunker that had been prepared long ago. Through the window, he peeped at the dining table not far away, as well as the sky above it. The air was filled with the smell of smoked grass. The flames burned and billowing smoke rose into the sky, accompanied by the mooing of cows, grunting of pigs, crowing of chickens, and crying of ducks. "Hurry up and join the banquet, old friend." Lys took off his clothes, stained with the smell of smoked grass, and threw them into the water tank in the bunker. He summoned the smoke mission. He saw the completion prompt: mission completed. Reward: Gem of the Invisible Dragon. Gem of the Invisible Dragon? Aren't the bloodline infected dragon-type life forms included in the reward? Lys had some doubts in his heart, but he did not get entangled. The 4 dragon-type cows with bloodline infection last time were also not included in the Invisible Dragon's gift. It was probably because the bloodline infection needed time to brew. The smoke in front of him slowly changed, forming new serpentines. Just as he saw the serpentines, Lys' gaze froze in the blink of an eye. You're tuning into the Eternal Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.